Chapter 901. Since the Druids admitted defeat, Chu Tian did not make it hard for them. He immediately gave the star marrow pill to Vivian and had Prophet Yoda take it. The Druids were filled with apprehension. Although they had suffered a large loss, as long as Prophet Yoda was cured, the Druids were willing to pay this price. Wasn't it just owing Miracle City 100,000 Source Stones? This number was not a small number. But with the work of the several hundred Druid priests in the Druid Temple, they could repay 10-20,000 every year, and they could repay it in 4 or 5 years. Vivian was a bit nervous in her heart. The Druids were not easy to deal with. If Chu Tian ruthlessly slaughtered them and didn't achieve the desired effect, the Druids would rebel again, and Chu Tian's prestige as the city lord would be greatly reduced. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes passed. After Yoda took the star marrow pill, his skinny body slowly recovered a bit of vitality. There was a faint glow of starlight surrounding his body, and it was like rain on a dry land, making his wrinkled skin recover its vitality. It seems like it's effective. The Druids all revealed looks of pleasant surprise. This pill seemed ordinary without any extraordinary abilities, but the effect was this immediate. It seemed like the city lord was not lying. This was a rare immortal pill. Whether it was the materials or the refining method, it was all impeccable. The prophet is awake. The prophet is awake. The Druids cried out in joy. Yoda was already slowly regaining consciousness. Vivian saw that the Druids were this happy, and she felt very proud in her heart. Big brother Chu Tian was really powerful. This dying person was actually revived by a single pill. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. Prophet Yoda, how do you feel? Yoda was the spiritual pillar of the Druid religion. Although the Druid religion had several high priests, just the high priest alone couldn't stabilize the religion. Once something happened to Yoda, the Druids would split. It wouldn't just be the Druid religion's problem, but rather the entire Miracle City's problem. Chu Tian didn't want Miracle City's conscription to go wrong. Yoda woke up and was stunned for half a second. He was surprised to find that his body had changed. The injuries from my battle with the Lich Dragon have completely healed, and the old injuries are clearly improving. The Druids were overjoyed. This meant that the prophet would quickly recover his full strength. At that time, Yoda would be a peak spirit transformation true spirit expert. Chu Tian already expected this. You've taken the pill I refined, and these small injuries will naturally be healed. However, you don't need to thank me, because this pill was sold to your Druid temple. It was just a fair trade. Yoda didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he understood what was going on. Actually, with Yoda's wisdom, how could he not guess that Miracle City would make a move against the Druids? No matter how magnanimous a ruler was, they wouldn't tolerate a group of troublemakers in their territory that didn't listen to orders. However, Yoda never thought that Chu Tian would use this kind of method. 100,000 Source Stones isn't considered much. Chu Tian gave a suggestion. I'm prepared to set up a staff department in Miracle City and have Prophet Yoda be Miracle City's chief staff officer with an annual salary of 10,000 Source Stones. Are you interested? The Druid was infuriated again. Chu Tian actually wanted the Druid's great prophet to be his subordinate. This was simply an insult to the Druid religion and the Druid god. Yoda was a bit hesitant. He didn't agree or reject. I want to remind everyone here that the current Miracle City is no longer the green city of the past. Chu Tian spoke in a calm and dignified manner. The person in charge has changed, and the rules have also changed. I respect the Druid culture, and I can set up an autonomous region in the city. But within my city, all citizens must follow Miracle City's rules. There are no exceptions and no exceptions. He already said this. Could the Druids refuse? Chu Tian was also lenient, giving the Druids enough freedom. Miracle City would not interfere with the Druids' internal affairs, but the Druids had to follow Miracle City's rules. With a city lord like you in Miracle City, the Forest of Chaos will have a new heaven and earth. Yoda said in an emotional voice, I agree to the city lord's request. I am willing to use my meager wisdom to help Miracle City prosper. The Druids were all stunned. The noble and mysterious prophet actually agreed to this kind of request. I believe in Prophet Yoda's promise. From today on, Prophet Yoda will be Miracle City's chief of staff and high-ranking scholar. I believe you will not regret your choice today. Chu Tian took a step back and cupped his hands. Since it's like this city lord won't bother you any longer. Prophet Yoda has not fully recovered and needs to rest. I will wait for the prophet's arrival in the city lord's castle. Vivian reached out her hand. The two of them disappeared in a spatial tremble. Sir Prophet, the druid said with a complicated expression, do we really have to submit to the rule of this human? That's right. We do not need to submit to a human. The druids are free. How could we be controlled by a human? Submit, how could we submit? Yoda sat down on the platform. I can't see Miracle City's future, but I can say for sure that this city will undergo an earth-shattering change. The druids wander around the forest and never have a true home, so I think we should find a stable place to live. After tonight, the druids will not only have to follow Miracle City's rules, they will also have to actively enter the world. The druids and the high priests were very shocked. The druids always had a neutral attitude. Unless their survival was threatened, they would not participate in any disputes. Yoda wanted everyone to actively enter the world, which was completely contrary to the druids' teachings. But the druids never doubted the prophet's words. If Prophet Yoda said this, then it must be reasonable and would be beneficial to the druids. These druids never doubted the prophet, not to mention the other druids. Although they were a bit confused, everyone accepted it. Yoda's clear eyes flashed with a few rays of light before he slowly closed them. Vivian brought Chu Tian to a grassland. There was a fast-flowing stream, and hundreds of flowers were blooming. Butterflies flew through the bushes, and there were wild deer and rabbits running away. There were mountains all around them that reached into the clouds. How did this look like a city? It was simply a quiet forest park. If they walked forward for another 10 miles, they would arrive at the arena for the recruitment. This kind of city was too spacious and too big. It was almost like a small country. There was enough space for humans to build several large cities. Big brother, is that dwarf very strong? Vivian thought about it. When he woke up, I didn't think I could win against him. If he recovers his strength, perhaps he would be a spirit transformation expert. Vivian was basically the second strongest expert in Miracle City. At least with the void escaping and the spatial dagger's offensive power, there weren't many Heaven Spirit Realm experts that could fight her, but there was nothing she could do if she met a spirit transformation expert. Miracle City still needs a strong enough person to oversee it, not to mention that Yoda has enough wisdom and knowledge. Whether it is managing the city or participating in the laboratory research, he can become an important person. You've done this and made the druid submit. When Big Sister Meng Qingwu finds out, she will definitely be very happy. The last obstacle in Miracle City had been swept away. Now is the time for the city to truly develop. Chu Tian's communication device rang at this time. It was actually Dolores calling. Chu Tian hadn't seen this coquettish fox girl in several days, and he didn't know where she had run off to. It was said that Meng Qingwu sent her out to do something, but it seemed like she had already returned to Miracle City. Let's go to the City Lord's castle. Vivian used her spatial energy without saying anything else. Dolores was in the magnificent hall of the City Lord's castle, playing with the communication device in her hand. Although she didn't know the principle behind it, this thing Chu Tian made was just too easy to use. No matter where the other person was, she could immediately contact them without any hindrance. There was a spatial fluctuation. Vivian had brought Chu Tian back here. Chu Tian looked at the travel-worn Dolores. I haven't seen you in so many days. Where did you run off to? You're still talking? A respected great city lord doesn't even know what his subordinates are doing. Dolores helplessly rolled her eyes at him. I've mobilized over 500 clansmen and have already formed a fox caravan. They are going in different directions to open a trade route for Miracle City. The gnomes. This was basically an isolated city. The gnomes were good at studying, but they weren't good at doing business. The city's income came from the taxes of foreign merchants. Now that the master had changed and Miracle Commerce was a business organization, adding in Meng Qingwu's merchant background as a vice city lord, Naturally, they would use Miracle City's superior location to do business. It was expected that Meng Qingwu would use the Fox people to do this. Chu Tian had also considered this before. The Fox people were natural merchants. I came back with a city returning scroll to report a few things. Dolores patted her waist where there were 2 scrolls. But speaking of this thing is very useful. Nonsense. Do you know how precious a scroll is right now? Miracle Commerce only had these few transport scrolls. Although Chu Tian had obtained a large pile of Eyes of the Star, he didn't have time to make them yet. It seemed like Meng Qingwu had given the remaining scrolls to Dolores so that she could report back to the city at any time. Dolores didn't beat around the bush and directly said, "We've already contacted many powerful tribes, towns, and even cities far away. Almost all of them are very interested in our products. This is a good thing, but we've also encountered some problems." Dolores gave a faint sigh. "I came back to discuss this matter, but the Vice City Lord is in closed-door cultivation. Although I'm very unwilling, I can only discuss it with you." Fuck, you're saying it like I'm very willing. Chapter 902. There was a large change in the southern summer country. Central State City's population had increased by a third compared to when Chu Tian left, and it was twice as prosperous as before. This was not only because Central State City had become the southern summer imperial city, but also because it was the birthplace of Miracle Commerce. Miracle Commerce had a large laboratory in Central State City and a large industrial park, which directly increased the growth of Central State City. Especially after Miracle Commerce's space warehouse was opened, Miracle Commerce often sold resources from the Forest of Chaos to the southern summer country, which greatly increased the southern summer country's strength. At this moment, people like the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others had all broken through their bottlenecks. The 2 of them were now experts in the first true spirit layer. The barbarian berserkers trained in the Southern State Berserker Training Camp were also hired by the southern summer country. They also bought large amounts of source energy weapons from Miracle Commerce's arsenal and used the 4 states' lake as a natural barrier. So it was hard for the Warhound's kingdom to take any advantage. Now that the southern summer country had recovered its strength, it was not weaker than before. The southern summer country quickly became famous in a short period of time. Now, there were caravans coming to the southern summer country from the surrounding countries to buy Miracle Commerce's products. Therefore, although the southern summer citizens still used southern summer gold coins in large transactions, they began to use source stones. This was a sign of connecting with the international market. The southern summer country, becoming the great summer country, was just around the corner. Clark walked on the streets of Central State City and felt like he was in another world. There were several dozen airships flying in the sky and tall buildings. There were all kinds of large screens, showing all kinds of eye-catching advertisements and the sound of horns coming from the streets. There were fewer beast carriages on the streets. Most likely due to Miracle Commerce's influence, Central State was a very innovative place. The Source Energy battery-powered Source Energy hover cars had already appeared, and there were quite a few people using this new convenient transportation tool. They were like beetles moving through the streets of the city. This was truly too shocking. How could a small country like the southern summer country develop to this point? The prosperity and wealth of the human cities far surpassed Clark's imagination. He did not dare believe that this was the capital of a small country. The rise of the humans in the last few hundred years was not without reason. Perhaps in another few thousand years, the elves and spirit beasts' limelight would be suppressed by the humans. The Central State Laboratory had already undergone a large change. After Chu Tian left Central State, he took a part of the business with him and placed it in the Southern State Laboratory. The Central State Laboratory focused on the source energy computer and expanded it several times, reaching twice its original size. There were over 2,000 people working on the source energy computer. With Chu Tian providing the core technology and ideas, the research team of over 2,000 people went through over 135,000 adjustments and experiments before finally completing something that surpassed this era. The Central State Laboratory members knew that Chu Tian was coming, so they all ran out to welcome him. Chu Tian saw several familiar figures among them, like the Lin siblings, the two founders of the Heaven's Alliance. Now that the citizens had joined miracle commerce and had become official researchers of the Yun sect, they were young and promising, making people envious. They were walking on the path of realizing their dreams. Greetings to the chairman and vice chairman. Everyone excitedly bowed down, almost kneeling down to Chu Tian and Lin Sun. These were all scholars from all over the country. A portion of them had never seen Chu Tian before and could only understand him through Chu Tian's image and deeds. Now that Chu Tian had become a god worshipped by the entire southern summer country, with this legendary person appearing in front of them, how could these people not be excited? Chu Tian was very surprised. There are so many people. Of course, Gu Qinxiu had already broken through to the true spirit realm, and he looked much younger than before. Perhaps it was because his life was more fulfilling and filled with energy. Not only are there southern summer scholars, there are also many people who didn't hesitate to travel thousands of miles, coming from other countries to study in the southern summer country. They have all become Yun sect scholars, and there are even 4 great scholars. Chu Tian nodded. Not bad, not bad. The Yun sect can be considered strong. With the Yun sect becoming stronger, the happiest person was, of course, old man Yun Tianhe. The Yun sect originated from the central state Yun family. The Yun family was a small country's family, but now they were able to use this method to become famous, and they could participate in the Yun sect's research. This was truly a breakthrough. The Yun sect's current strength did not seem strong. Among the gnomes that Chu Tian had allied with, in terms of academic level, there were at least several hundred great scholars. However, the geographical isolation would cause academic isolation. The human scholars and gnome scholars did not have the same research methods, so they needed to communicate with each other in order to integrate. Not to mention that the Yun sect was created by Chu Tian. Gu Qinxiu, Yun Tianhe, and the other Yun sect scholars had been studying with Chu Tian for an entire year, so they had grasped large amounts of miracle commerce's core technology. This was a gap that no scholar in the world could catch up to, so they couldn't be judged by their knowledge alone. Chu Tian's group began to tour the Central State Laboratory. Although Central State's Yun sect's research facility had been moved to Southern State, this was Miracle Commerce's earliest research facility, so it was still the place where Miracle Commerce's technology was gathered the most. Almost every Miracle Commerce product and technology was stored. I suggest that Great Elder Clark form a group of scholars when he returns and have the gnome scholars come to Central State for a period of time. What do you think? That's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I want. Clark was already deeply shocked by Miracle Commerce. Clark finally understood Chu Tian's background, but he also felt a large opportunity and future. Most of the gnomes were scholars. Miracle City's resources were stronger than Central State's, and Miracle City's research facility was larger than Central State's. Moreover, Chu Tian had already made Miracle Commerce their headquarters, so the Yun sect future headquarters would be in Miracle City. The gnomes would have a large opportunity. If they could join the Yun sect, the gnomes would have a decisive position in the Yun sect. This was enough for the gnomes to go down in history, becoming the representative of the continent scholars, pioneers of invention and innovation, becoming a large influential clan in another way. Yun Tianhe opened the door to a laboratory. Rows of drawer-like black boxes appeared in front of them. When one of the black boxes was pulled out, each box was filled with source energy array slabs. There were 6 of these black boxes forming a hexagon. They were all connected to each other, forming a large complex source energy matrix. This source energy matrix was made up of over 10 arrays, and each array had over 100 source energy arrays. There were over 300,000 runes, and it needed around 10 energy columns to operate at the same time. These are the main computers. They are the first generation source energy matrix. Yun Tianhe said in a very proud voice, "This source energy matrix contains over 300 source energy array processing centers and 8 information storage arrays. Its calculation speed can reach 500 million times per second, which is enough to handle a large amount of information." 500 million calculations per second? Clark revealed a stunned expression. With this kind of powerful calculation ability, If it was used in source energy array deductions or experiments, how much of a help would it be? 500 million? Chu Tian shook his head. Too slow. This was still slow? Everyone didn't know what to say. Not to mention the size is too big. Chu Tian looked at the 6 large black boxes and shook his head. We need to increase the strength of the source energy matrix and shrink the size of the source energy matrix. Otherwise, a single source energy matrix would take up the entire room. It would be too cumbersome, and it would be hard to popularize. Yin Tianhe and Gu Qinxiu wiped their sweat. The chairman's request could scare people to death. This source energy matrix calculation system took over a year to make. Could it be that he wanted to promote this to the entire world? That was simply a joke. Chu Tian said, "We are preparing to make an automatic array engraving device. With an intelligent computer, array masters won't need to personally carve runes one by one in the future. All the talismans and alchemy production will be automated and the production efficiency will increase." The automatic array engraving device needed source stones to operate. Because the source energy contained in source stones was the closest to the human body, it could be used to make source energy arrays. Source energy batteries were an industrial energy source that could maintain source energy arrays, but they couldn't be used to make source energy arrays. So, the array engraving device would cost a lot, but it would free up large amounts of labor, allowing them to increase their technology. Gu Qinxiu said, "This array is still missing a core. There's no need for you to say it. I've brought it." Chu Tian gently waved his hand, and the artificial intelligence Zero was released. Zero, begin the fusion. Zero's incorporeal body floated to the center of the giant array. There was a crystal there, and Zero's body melted into it. Almost in an instant, an invisible energy spread out and the entire array was activated. Chu Tian directly asked, "Zero, how do you feel?" Zero's voice came from the array. "The entire array has been connected to me. Is Zero really that strong?" Meng Yingying was a bit in disbelief. "You wouldn't be bragging, right?" Chu Tian snappily said, "If you don't believe me, you can test him. I'll test him." Meng Yingying loudly asked a series of questions. "Zero, let me ask you. 252, 541, 3 multiplied by 434, 2342 divided by 21,343 multiplied by 43,543 added by 654,245 multiplied by 143,432. What is the final result?" Zero answered without any hesitation. Meng Yingying spent more than 10 minutes to calculate it once. Finally, she discovered that there was not even the slightest error. The hundreds of digits after the decimal point were calculated clearly. She immediately revealed an expression of admiration. Chu Tian was amused by Meng Yingying. "You want to ask Zero this kind of child's play question?" Meng Qingwu never thought that the combination of the artificial intelligence and the source energy matrix calculation system would have such a shocking effect. If we bring this source energy computer to Miracle City, we can use it to manage Miracle City's accounts, bank data, citizens' information, and even city planning. I think it would be very convenient. How could it be just like that? Chu Tian said with a faint smile. The source energy matrix calculation system's calculation speed cannot be compared to the human brain. Using it to create a spiritual space will be more stable. Using it to invent new source energy arrays will be more outstanding. Using it to control source energy weapons will be more terrifying. Using it to control production will be more precise. And in the future, when the calculation power increases by several hundred or thousand times, we can even use it to calculate all kinds of changes. In short, its functions are not something you can imagine. That's right. Zero was the continent's first super source energy computer. Although it couldn't compare to humans in terms of invention and creation, it could not be compared to normal people in terms of logic and calculation. It had already reached the realm of spiritual gods. Chu Tian ordered, "Young miss, send Zero to Miracle City. You'll be the only person with the highest authority over Zero other than me. From now on, Zero will be Miracle City's management system. I believe that with this thing, Miracle City's development will increase by a large amount." Meng Qingwu asked, When will the second one be made? Gu Qianxiu and Yun Tianhe looked at each other. I'm afraid it will take at least a month. That long? No. Chu Tian shook his head and said, recruit more people. I'll have the gnomes help you. First, create the array machine. We don't have that much time to make them one by one. This thing needs to be mass-produced. It needs to be smaller and smaller, and its computing speed needs to be faster. Yes, the birth of an intelligent computer. This was Chu Tian's true beginning. Chapter 903. Chu Tian was depressed, but he didn't care about it with his personality. He was happy to be idle anyways. Dolores's Fox Caravan had opened a trade route from Miracle City, and they had already obtained initial results. They had basically settled in the nearby small towns and were negotiating with the local tribes, even trying to establish contact with other forest cities. We are prepared to build a large-scale miracle shopping center. Dolores told Chu Tian her idea. The first batch will be placed in over 20 small towns to test the effects. We will be working with over 100 tribes this time, selling Miracle City's products and sharing the forest resources, creating the largest supermarket in the forest. Miracle Shopping Center concept? Meng Qingwu had already mentioned it in the southern summer country's South Sky City. The Miracle Shopping Center was a large-scale general merchandise platform and a supermarket built by the company. Miracle Commerce's product would be the main product, clearly marked, sold on the shelves, and sold in a regulated manner, with chain stores all over the country. This platform would also bring in the products of powerful companies and families from all over the country, making the shopping center more complete and competitive. Meng Qingwu's idea was very far-sighted, and she had a lot of potential. The only mistake was Miracle Commerce's development speed. Miracle Commerce had only spent a year rising from South Sky City to jumping out of the southern summer country. There were also canned food, magnetic sound machines, source energy weapons, and other products with great potential. The Miracle Shopping Center's development speed couldn't keep up with the company's development speed, so Miracle Commerce's revenue wasn't large. Therefore, it was quite useless in the southern summer country. Meng Qingwu once again brought up the idea of the forest supermarket. This was not only because Miracle Commerce's position was different from before, Miracle Commerce itself was also different from before. Miracle Commerce's spatial technology had made large progress over the past few months. The Miracle Shopping Center would completely change and become the largest supermarket chain in the forest in a way that surpassed people's imaginations. The Forest of Chaos was very big and rich in resources. Why were the forest races so poor? Why were there so few merchants from outside the forest that came to do business? The main reason was that the forest environment was too complicated and dangerous. There were ferocious aborigines everywhere, and bandits who blocked the road were everywhere. 90% of the powers in the forest followed the Dark Forest Law and did not dare show themselves. Every time the forest merchants came to the Forest of Chaos to do business, it was a gamble of life and death. These contradictions affected the development of the Forest of Chaos, and it was because of these contradictions that Meng Qingwu saw a large opportunity. The Miracle Shopping Center could change this situation. The Miracle Shopping Center was no longer a large physical shopping center in South Sky City. Rather, it was a higher level, more suitable, more convenient, and more flexible existence. It combined the already mature Miracle Commerce communication technology, sound and image transmission, air transportation technology, as well as the currently starting, but already beginning to be used space and spiritual technology. Dolores gave an example. We are prepared to open virtual shopping centers in 20 small towns, using image transferring mirrors to display products. The important products will be directly tested in spiritual experience stores, and each store will be connected to Miracle City, allowing customers to directly ask questions from a distance. This way, we don't need a large store and we can have tens of thousands of products. Chu Tian nodded. That sounds pretty good. That's not all. We can use the Miracle Broadcasting Station and the Miracle Television Station to advertise and buy products. For example, we can use the Miracle Shopping Center's hot products, event products, or the newest products to broadcast or send pictures and videos to various places. It's best if people can buy things without leaving their homes. Vivian was confused hearing this. how will we send these things to our customers? That will depend on the space technology you are in charge of. Dolores became more excited the more she spoke. Although with Miracle Commerce's current level, we can't open a personal storage warehouse for everyone, but we can collect orders and send them to various cities and towns. If there are large orders from tribes, we can use airships to send them. This way, there will be almost no risk. In doing business in the Forest of Chaos, risk was always number one. This risk mainly came from the outside world, but with Miracle Commerce's method of doing business, not only was it fast and convenient, it also had almost zero risk. Miracle Commerce did not just sell their own products, they could also sell products from the Southern Summer Country and other places. The large tribes chose to cooperate with Miracle Commerce, and they sold their products on the Miracle Shopping Center's platform. Not only could they sell it to the various cities and towns in the forest, they could even sell it to countries outside the Forest of Chaos. When the products were no longer restricted by region, the price would naturally rise and the benefits would be unimaginable. Miracle Commerce's platform would not only create a large amount of value, it would also allow them to gather large amounts of resources for themselves. It would also allow the locals of the forest to become rich, allowing the Forest of Chaos to undergo an earth-shattering change. Vivian's blood boiled hearing this. It was just like what Vivian thought when the space warehouse was built. This was a large benefit to the elves. For example, the elves' tea leaves, artwork, and various treasures. If they were sold locally, they wouldn't be worth much, but if they were sold to the human empires, they could be sold for over 100 times the price. Didn't the elves not like interacting with the outside world? Now they could ship these things to Miracle City and have Miracle City sell them in the shopping center. At worst, they could just split the profits, and the elves could obtain benefits they didn't even dare believe before. In the future, the elves could use the Miracle Shopping Center to buy products from all over the continent. As long as they paid the money, these goods could be sent from all over the world to the Eternal Forest, to the secret area where the elves lived, allowing the elves' lives to be greatly improved. Too great. Good. It really is very good. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said in a confused voice, "What is so difficult about this? Miracle Commerce is still too small right now. We don't have enough manpower to send people to build the shopping center. Moreover, as the shopping center becomes larger and larger, our shopping center team will become larger and larger. Finally, we will become bloated and it will be hard to manage." Dolores said with a sigh, "There is another very important thing. Think about it. We've opened such a large market. If we eat it all by ourselves, wouldn't other people be jealous?" Vivian knit her brows. "Then what do we do?" Vice City Lord Meng Qingwu is prepared to find a regional agent. This will solve this problem. Dolores paused before saying, "The small towns have their own agents, the cities have their own agents, and the countries have their own agents. We'll cooperate with the strongest power in the area and let the locals manage the shopping center. Miracle City will provide technical support and management, and we'll split the profits. This way, it will make it easier for the local areas to manage, and it will make everyone rich together. The young miss really has a way. If we find an agent like this, it will make it easier for the local areas to manage, and it will speed up our development. On the surface, it looks like we're giving up some benefits, but it will create a more stable win-win situation." Chu Tian nodded. "Since it's like this, then we'll do it. Do you think I don't want to?" Dolores rolled her eyes. City Lord Meng Qingwu's plan is meticulous, but there are still some mistakes and miscalculations. The large tribes and races in the Forest of Chaos are much poorer than she imagined. Although there are many people who are interested, they don't have enough money to participate. No money. What are you talking about if you don't have money? Chu Tian had a look of bad luck. Could it be that Miracle Commerce has to build everything for them? That's why I came back. Dolores smiled strangely. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Chu Tian and Vivian were both stunned. Dolores was not a stupid person. She should know how big the investment was. She hadn't even seen the benefits yet. Was she going to give away all the money first? As Miracle City's chief financial officer, she should know that Miracle City's financial situation was not optimistic. "I have an idea. We can use this chance to create another platform. If this platform is successful, in the forest of chaos, and even on the continent, it won't be any worse than the Miracle Shopping Center. Dolores paused for a bit. I've even thought of a name for the platform. It'll be called Miracle Bank. Bank. This was Vivian's first time hearing this term. What is a bank? We can invest a large amount of money to build a bank, and the bank will lend them money through mortgages, letting them complete the initial construction. Dolores added after saying this. Of course, the bank won't lend money for free. We can set a high interest rate and use this method to earn money. Vivian quickly thought of the key point. What if they don't return the money they borrow? The forest races are actually not truly poor. Their tribes have accumulated treasures from generation to generation. They only lack primordial stones and certain resources that they need. Our loans have mortgages, so if the tribes want to borrow money from us, they have to put up a mortgage. Dolores added after saying this. In the future, when Miracle City has enough reputation, we can expand our business even further. The forest races have money, and it's not safe to keep large amounts of money in their tribes, so they can store it in the bank. Not only will we not charge them a storage fee, we will even give them a certain amount of interest. We will use the bank's money to pay a mortgage, using money to make money, creating an endless cycle. Good. Chu Tian was very excited. Very good. Dolores did not disappoint Chu Tian, actually thinking of this method. This fellow was destined to be recorded in history. She would become the founder of the continent's financial world. This is a detailed plan. Dolores gave a scroll to Chu Tian. I hope that the bank can open as soon as possible, giving Miracle City and Miracle Commerce a stronger motivation. Chapter 904. The Super Source Energy Matrix and the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body. The two were completely different things. According to normal history, the two would appear around 400–500 years apart. First, there was the Source Energy Matrix, and then the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body. Therefore, the Source Energy Matrix in the history books was originally controlled by humans and could only be used for normal calculations and statistics. After all, a living person could not merge with the Matrix, and the Matrix itself did not have any intelligence. When the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body appeared, the situation was different. Gu Qinxiu said with a sigh, "This thing will be recorded in history. Chairman should give it a new name." Chu Tian also felt that computer didn't sound good, so he said to the people beside him, "I'm not good at naming things. You guys should do it." "I have one." Meng Ying scratched her head and blurted out, "How smart is its brain? We'll just call it Smart Brain. What do you guys think?" Meng Qingwu nodded in satisfaction. "I think it's very good." Chu Tian didn't think too much before deciding. "All right, then we'll call it Smart Brain." Smart Brain. This was a super intelligent computer with strong learning and calculating abilities. It could be used in all aspects of life in the future. This was another milestone in the continent's development and a leap in Miracle Commerce's development. Meng Qingwu was already a bit impatient. Immediately send this Smart Brain to Miracle City to use first. I want to figure out how many functions Smart Brains have. Chu Tian waved his hand at her. What is the young miss in a rush for? Smart Brain won't fly away if we leave it here. Now that Miracle City and Central State have a transport network, we can teleport between the two places at any time. It's already very convenient to go back and forth, so there's no need to be in a rush. This was also true. Having a transport tower was truly convenient. Speaking of the Miracle Transport Tower, we consume quite a bit of energy each time we use it, so there should be a limit to the number of people we can teleport each day. Moreover, while the transport tower brings convenience, it also brings danger and instability. For example, people with bad intentions from the outside world can use the transport tower to come to Miracle City. Meng Qingwu asked, "Is there a way to prevent this from happening?" The Miracle Transport Towers were built all over the world. It was impossible for Miracle Commerce to protect every transport tower, so there was always the possibility of an accident occurring. This would undoubtedly bring danger. When a Miracle Transport Tower is connected to Smart Brain in the future, we will be able to control everything, so we don't need to worry about this. Chu Tian said this before pausing. As for now, we can only raise the threshold to prevent the transport tower from being abused. Meng Qingwu nodded. The two of them drafted a Miracle Commerce's Transport Tower Usage Regulations and Guidelines. This set of guidelines clearly stated, before using the Miracle Transport Tower, one had to first apply for a Transport Tower Use Permit from Miracle Commerce and also a Transport Pass Permit to the destination. The former was the right to use the local transport tower, and the latter was the right to reach the destination. Unless it was a high-level member of Miracle Commerce with special permission, they had to apply to the relevant Miracle Commerce Department a day in advance. They had to report the time and destination of the transport and pay 20 source stones to complete the transport service. After going around and around, in the end, they still had to spend 20 low-grade source stones. 20 low-grade source stones were converted to Southern Summer Gold coins. That was 20 million gold coins. This kind of cost was hard for normal people to imagine, but with this kind of restriction, the transport tower would not be overloaded and it would be able to prevent any danger from occurring. Meng Qingwu nodded in satisfaction. This was much safer. Not only was the transport tower safer, it was also a foundation for commercialization. That night, the high-level members of Miracle Commerce gathered in the Southern Summer Royal Palace. The Southern Summer King held a large-scale banquet, not only to celebrate Miracle Commerce's glory, but also to thank Miracle Commerce for supporting the Southern Summer Country. Actually, Miracle Commerce's early development was inseparable from the care of the divine Wind Marquis, Yun Tianhe, and the Southern Summer King, Dongfanggan. The reason the Southern Summer Country was able to smoothly pass through several crises was also because of Chu Tian and Miracle Commerce's help. Especially after the Southern Summer Country's imperial region was destroyed, the Southern Summer Country had to move their capital to Central State. Chu Tian brought his team to leave Central State, but he kept sending resources back and selling weapons and troops to the Southern Summer Country. This allowed the half-dead Southern Summer Country to quickly recover. The entire Southern Summer Country was filled with gratitude towards Chu Tian. Although Miracle Commerce would slowly move out of the country, Miracle Commerce's traces would never disappear. Miracle Commerce would still leave behind large amounts of factories and laboratories in the Southern Summer Country, which would continue to operate. Not only would it provide large amounts of jobs for the Southern Summer Country, it would also bring the country to prosperity. Meng Yingying, Nangong Yun, and Vivian were very happy. The three girls repeatedly clinked their cups and drank until their faces turned red. Let's drink another cup. Let's go to the theater after we finish eating. All right, I heard that he has a new work coming out recently. Nangong Yun and Yingying were very attached to Central State. After all, they had grown up here and had over 10 years of memories. Meng Yingying's face turned red. It wasn't easy to come back, and we thought we wouldn't have another chance in this lifetime. Who would have thought that the transport towers would be built and we could come back to play at any time? This is truly great. That's right. Nangong Yin began to laugh. Our boss really is skilled. Vivian also chattered on. In the future, distance will not be a problem. When we're in the mood, we can come back to eat or go to the theater. This kind of life is very beautiful just thinking about it. Big Brother Chu Tian is too great. Dolores had just been called back from Miracle City, and it was her first time coming to a human place. At this moment, everything was filled with novelty. This is where the Vice City Lord lived? It seems like the Vice City Lord's status in this country wasn't low. Meng Qingwu nodded with a faint smile. She didn't like to drink and would only take a sip every time. In order to keep a clear head, she bitterly smiled and shook her head. What status? If it was a year and a half ago, I would just be a small merchant in a small city a few hundred miles away from here. Every day, I would be careful as if I was walking on thin ice, living a life of constant fear. How is this possible? Dolores cried out in shock. Your company is so big and you're a marquis. Moreover, you're so smart and capable. How could you be a small merchant? I don't believe it. Human society is more complicated than the forest. At that time, there was no strength, no background, and no technology. How could you have any achievements? When Meng Qingwu said this, her eyes became a bit hazy. In this 1 year, everything has changed. Miracle Commerce has gone from nothing to something, from small to big. It really is shocking. 1 year? Miracle Commerce only used 1 year? Dolores couldn't even close her mouth. This was clearly not the work of Meng Qingwu. It was all the work of the mysterious Miracle City Lord. He really was a miraculous person. This king will take this chance to announce a few things. The Southern Summer King gently raised his hand, and several royal proclamations were presented. Miracle Commerce has given the Southern Summer Country a new lease of life. The Cloud Dream Marquis is now titled the Cloud Dream Ruler. Nangong Yun is titled the Phoenix Marquis, and Meng Yingying is titled the Marquis Ying. The Southern Summer Country is small and has no land to grant. Although it is an empty title, it represents the Southern Summer Country's friendship. Whether it was Nangong Yun or Yingying, they did not care about the Marquis title. They had the resources in their hands. How could a title compare to them? Not to mention an empty title, but to be granted a Marquis title in their country. This was a matter worth celebrating. While everyone was celebrating, suddenly, one of the Southern Summer King's communication devices rang. Portable communication devices were very common in Central State, and most people with a bit of status had one. How could the Southern Summer King not have one as the king? The Southern Summer King did not say much before his brows knit together. There's a situation in the Northern Defense Line. This king cannot accompany everyone. I've been rude. What did you say? Could it be the Northern Spirit Beasts are attacking again? Nangongyan almost flipped the table. How preposterous. Are you done? It's not an all-out attack. The Southern Summer King shook his head and said, it's just harassment. Everyone doesn't know. Yun Tianus said from the side, when you left the Southern Summer Country, the Warhound's kingdom had already harassed the Southern Summer Country 5-6 times. Although they returned without any success, they still brought quite a bit of trouble. Although the Southern Summer Country can block the Warhound's kingdom's attacks, they do not have enough military strength to counterattack. Right now, the North and South are in a state of separation. Chu Tian knit his brows. What is the Warhound's battle strength like? After the Battle of the Four States Lake, the Fong King and his army were completely annihilated. The Warhounds have gathered another 300,000 elites on the Warhounds Plains, and the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom has added another 300,000. Now, there are 600,000 troops stationed in the fortress. Although there are more and more troops stationed here, they have only been harassing us, which means that they are still accumulating strength. As long as their army reaches a certain level, they will launch another large battle against the Southern Summer Country. It's too troublesome to have a ticking time bomb by our side. Chu Tian looked at the young miss beside him. How about we take advantage of this time to get rid of them in one go? Get rid of them in one go? The Southern Summer King and the others all opened their eyes wide. Chu Tian said this in a very relaxed tone. How was it like he was destroying a large kingdom? It was as simple as drinking a cup of water in front of him. Who would have thought that Meng Qingwu would not be surprised by Chu Tian's suggestion? After thinking about it for a minute, she nodded and said, this is also good. Miracle Commerce's business in Central State is not small, and if it is exposed to the enemy's army, it will be like a fishbone stuck in our throat. It is better to get rid of it as soon as possible. This can be considered taking revenge for the Southern Summer Country's old Marshal Dongfang Zhan and the other heroes who died. Chapter 905. Miracle Banking's future was limitless. Not only would it increase Miracle City's influence in the future, it would also allow Miracle City to control the economy of the entire forest, finally becoming the commercial and financial center of the continent. Going from the future to the modern world allowed Chu Tian to have incomparably advanced knowledge. Therefore, he could clearly understand that miracle banking had great potential. If this idea came from Chu Tian's head, it wouldn't be strange at all. Dolores was a native that grew up in the forest, and for her to think of this, it was a very incredible matter. Chu Tian asked, how much money do you think is appropriate to take from the company's treasury? Dolores decisively replied, all of it. All of it? That's right, Dolores said in a very confident voice. The Miracle Shopping Center has just started. It's just 20 small towns and a few large tribes. But I think the amount of loans won't be small. But after these powers borrow source stones, they have to buy equipment, materials, technology, and agent fees from the company. They have to meet the maintenance and hiring of technicians, so most of the source stones will flow back to Miracle City. Miracle Banking's source stones will circulate once and then flow back into Miracle City's pockets. Vivian was a bit confused. We've opened our business, sold our products, increased our influence, and developed the Miracle Shopping Center in the bank, but in the end, we've obtained a large amount of collateral and debts. Changing from left to right, we've eaten all the benefits. How could there be this kind of good thing in this world? Dolores blinked. This is just this kind of good thing. This was truly a profiteer. The slyness of the Fox clan was vividly displayed. With this Fox clan merchant team in Miracle City, how could they worry about not being able to make a lot of money in the future? After a few days, the young Miss, Ying, and Nangong had all successfully broken through. Their starlight immortal body had reached the large success realm, and they had all broken through to the true spirit realm. Meng Qingwu had just come out when she learned that Dolores was planning to build Miracle Banking. This surprised Meng Qingwu, but with her outstanding mind and intelligence, she instantly understood the benefits. Not simple, truly not simple. This Fox clan woman was indeed a talent that could take care of things alone. On the other hand, Miracle City's conscription was coming to an end. Chu Tian was the city lord and the one who started the conscription, so of course he had to personally take a look. The main people in charge of the conscription were Dongfang Haoran and Chun Bingyu. These two had low-key personalities, so they weren't very active in Miracle Commerce's high level, but they were very direct and efficient. The conscription was completed without any problems. Of course, their contributions could not go unnoticed. The 30,000 forest locals that had been filtered through layers of people were standing in an orderly fashion in the open space. They were arranged according to their size and race. Although they were wearing different clothes and had different weapons, it already looked like an army. There weren't just Miracle City's new recruits here. The various tribes were all gathered around to join in the fun. This kind of scene was rarely seen in the forest. This was the first regular army in the Forest of Chaos and the first professional soldiers. Big Sister being Haoran, it's been hard on you. Before Chu Tian went on stage to speak, he first shook hands with the two of them. Chun Bingyu's style did not change at all, always wearing a black mask and keeping a low profile. Dongfang Haoran was different. Dongfang Haoran's tall and strong body was covered in armor, looking like a veteran general on the battlefield. This made Chu Tian feel very satisfied. Dongfang Haoran had grown very quickly in this period of time, so Chu Tian wanted to train him into a general of Miracle City's army. I believe that the soldiers participating in Miracle City's recruitment are the strongest and most elite warriors of the forest. Chu Tian took a loudspeaker and went on stage. You are all elites picked out of 10. You are all warriors among warriors. Miracle City needs people, so we welcome you to become Miracle City's glorious regular soldiers. The 30,000 new recruits all revealed looks of pride. The soldiers here had all fought their way through countless battles in the virtual arena and had passed a series of tests before finally becoming Miracle City soldiers. For them to be able to stand here, it was the pride of a soldier. Not to mention that becoming a Miracle City soldier not only meant finding a good job for themselves, it also meant gaining quite a bit of glory and benefits for their tribe. I can clearly tell everyone that from the moment you choose Miracle City, you will welcome a different life. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Everyone's starting point is fair. Wealth, power, and glory, it is inexhaustible. Chu Tian passionately shouted, "From today onwards, you will carry the glory of Miracle City and fight for Miracle City. Let us create Miracle City's glory together." Roar, roar, roar. The new recruits all roared out. The tribes in the forest had simple minds, therefore it didn't take too much brain power to control this kind of army. As long as they were treated well, as long as they were respected, as long as they had a future they could look forward to, there would be many soldiers willing to work for Miracle City. Other than that, this city lord will use this chance to announce a large matter. Chu Tian loudly shouted, "In order to provide better benefits to Miracle City's citizens, Miracle Commerce will establish Miracle Bank and open a savings account for the citizens. Every idle source stone in the hands of a Miracle City citizen can be used to open a savings account in Miracle City. You can deposit and withdraw as you wish without any restrictions. We will provide the safest financial protection for the citizens, and not only will we not charge any fees, we will also give interest to the citizens. We will give interest of 1% for a full month, 8% for half a year, and 20% for a full year. The Miracle City people were stunned. They all had strange expressions as they whispered in each other's ears. More and more source stones could be stored. This was just too incredible. A full year's interest was 20%. If 100 source stones were stored for a year, wouldn't it become 120 source stones? The gnomes had very long lifespans. If they stored source stones in Miracle Bank for 50 to 100 years, wouldn't it become a large amount of wealth? Chu Tian chose to announce Miracle Bank at the recruit ceremony to attract more people's attention. Miracle Bank's savings account was only open to the citizens. This was mainly because Chu Tian was clear that Miracle Commerce's influence wasn't enough. Why would the forest locals and outside powers believe him? Not to mention that the situation in the Forest of Chaos changed in an instant. If Miracle City was destroyed one day, where would these people's wealth go? So Miracle Bank savings account was a kind of welfare, opening it to the citizens of Miracle City. When the time was right, they would expand their account. But it was clear that even in Miracle City, most people didn't believe it. How could there be such an incredible thing? Miracle Commerce would take care of the source stones, and the source stones would increase in interest, producing even more source stones? The results of Miracle Bank's opening were not good. Chu Tian used his status as the city lord to promote it and used Miracle Commerce's strength as a guarantee. He also showed the citizens how convenient it was to store the space warehouse. But the citizens maintained a wait-and-see attitude and had no interest at all. Chu Tian was very depressed. This was not a good sign. Although this business was slow and he had to take it slow and steady, if everyone didn't have confidence in Miracle City and Chu Tian, how would they develop in the future? Chu Tian discussed it with Meng Qingwu and Dolores. Who cares? They would start lending in the forest first. Dolores led the fox race merchants around to negotiate. Finally, several strong local powers decided to use treasures of enough value as collateral, taking out a large amount of source stones from Miracle Bank to start a big business. Miracle Bank was 100% a high-interest loan. The treasures the locals used as collateral were valued at the market price of the forest, which was around double the value of the loan. The annual interest on the loan was 100%. Even like this, when a few leaders appeared, the other tribes and large locals followed suit and were all willing to accept this kind of harsh loan. This was because they understood that if they didn't take the loan, someone else would. If they didn't grasp this kind of good opportunity and someone else took it first, it would be too late for regrets in the future. The worst result would be that they couldn't repay the loan and would have to pay the bank the treasures in the space warehouse. Miracle Bank's successful loans gradually increased, and Meng Qingwu and Dolores began to have headaches. This was troublesome. They didn't have enough source stones. These people were more enthusiastic about taking loans than they imagined. The treasures of the tribes were like trash. They all rushed to use them as collateral. These things were valued high in the forest market. So if Miracle Commerce shipped them outside, wouldn't it be worth several times more? Therefore, no matter if the locals could repay the loan or not, Miracle Commerce would not lose 100% on this business. Moreover, giving these source stones to the locals would quickly improve Miracle City's business system, which would benefit Miracle City in the end. Of course, the company would spare no effort in lending. Meng Qingwu tightly knit her brows. How many source stones do we have left? There's only 10,000 left. Dolores's face was filled with worry. We've already stepped on the red line. If we keep taking loans, the city's operations will be in danger and the gnomes' research base will be affected. But there are several important areas that haven't been repaid yet. The gnome's great elder Clark requests an audience. Clark? Invite him in. Clark brought several clansmen with him, carrying several boxes as he walked in. Meng Qingwu looked at the gnomes in a puzzled manner. Elder Clark, you are." The gnome Great Elder Clark waved his hand, and the gnome priests immediately opened the boxes, revealing large amounts of source stones in front of them. These 50,000 source stones are the gnome's unused source stones. I'm prepared to deposit them in Miracle Bank for a year in the gnome's name. Meng Qing Wu and Dolores were shocked before being filled with joy. This was truly an unexpected, pleasant surprise. The gnomes would provide this large deposit, providing a large amount of support for Miracle Bank. Clark was not stupid. The gnomes would do this because the gnomes and Miracle City's benefits were linked. If Miracle City became prosperous, they would also benefit. The other reason was that the gnomes had seen Miracle Bank's stable profit model, so they had enough confidence in Miracle Bank. Miracle Bank's appearance would not only earn large amounts of money from Miracle City, it would also promote the development of the entire area. Finally, Meng Qingwu signed a special agreement with Clark. The monthly and half-year interest on these 50,000 source stones were eliminated. As long as they were saved for a year, they would provide 40% interest. To encourage and support the gnomes, they would double the interest. The gnomes were also very happy. A year wasn't considered much to the gnomes. 50,000 source stones in Miracle Bank would double in value in a year. This was something they didn't even dare think about in the past. The matter of the gnomes having a large deposit in Miracle Bank was immediately spread through Miracle Commerce's various channels in Miracle City. This caused a large stir, and there were many powers and individuals that came to make deposits. This caused the stagnant deposit business to become more active. Miracle Bank obtained enough capital and continued to lend and invest in the forest, while Miracle Bank was becoming more prosperous. Chapter 906. The Warhound's kingdom was a large kingdom no matter what, and the Warhound's planes were all soldiers. How could they be destroyed so easily? Miracle Commerce had left the southern summer country for a long time. When did they become this arrogant? It was fine if Chu Tian was like this, but Meng Qing Wu had also been assimilated by this fellow. The southern summer country's strength is slowly recovering, but its battle strength is still not enough. It can protect itself, but it can't counterattack. The Southern Summer King gave a sigh. Not to mention that even if we can destroy the Warhound's kingdom's main force, there are still several tens of millions of fierce spirit beasts in the Warhound's plains. There is also the incomparably strong Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom behind the Warhound's plains. This was the truth. A warring kingdom was not a small matter. The Eagle Burial Kingdom's experts could not compare to the giants of the Forest of Chaos. But the Eagle Burial Kingdom was a large kingdom with over 1.5 billion people, and it was a spirit beast kingdom. The difference between the spirit beast and human kingdoms was very large. The human kingdoms were rich, prosperous, and civilized, while the spirit beast kingdoms were loose, barbaric, and warlike. If a human kingdom and a spirit beast kingdom fought on the same level, they would not be able to win. A Warhound's plains with tens of millions of people could form a Warhound's kingdom. A Warhound's kingdom with tens of millions of people could form 1 million soldiers. And a Warhound's kingdom with tens of millions of people could beat the southern summer country with 200 million people half to death. This was a spirit beast kingdom. A spirit beast kingdom where every citizen was a soldier. The Eagle Burial Kingdom had a conservative estimate of 1.5 billion people. This was considered a large kingdom on the continent. Moreover, with the characteristics of a spirit beast kingdom, the proportion of their army was very high, especially for a warring kingdom that fought all over the place. Therefore, the Eagle Burial Kingdom had tens of millions of soldiers, plundering all over the place and living by fighting. Wherever they went, they were shrewd, using the tributes from the subordinate kingdoms to feed their army. The Eagle Burial Kingdom had been fighting all over the place, increasing their army and territory. This was a kingdom that was constantly expanding, and the southern summer country was just one of the countries the Eagle Burial Kingdom conquered to the south. Their strength could not be underestimated. Even if the Eagle Burial Kingdom is strong, fighting on all sides at once, they can't gather their forces at all. It is impossible for them to send their army to the southern summer country. Meng Qingwu was not worried about the Eagle Burial Kingdom at all. If the Eagle Burial Kingdom had enough troops, what were they doing over half a year? After dilly-dallying for so long, they only sent 300,000 soldiers to the Warhound's kingdom. This meant that the Eagle Burial Kingdom could not send too many troops. Once the north is attacked, we will have a buffer zone and Central State will not need to constantly face the Spirit Beast Army. Chu Tian slapped the table. We'll just rule the Warhound's plains and create a northern militant kingdom. Everyone was speechless. This was becoming more and more ridiculous. Was the Warhound's kingdom a country that could be easily destroyed? Was the Warhound's plains that easy to rule? The several tens of thousands of spirit beasts were nomads. In the endless plains that stretched over 10,000 miles, they were elusive and hard to track. So how could they be easily found? Meng Qingwu did not say anything, but she began to make arrangements. The new generation of source energy weapons have been developed, so we'll use this chance to test its power. Have Dongfang Haoran bring Miracle Commerce's Southern State Reserve Berserker Army over. Gu Qianxiu quickly said, "To Chairman, you have to think this over. The Southern State Reserve Army is an army that Miracle Commerce trained for several months and spent over 1 billion gold coins to create. Once the war begins, the soldiers' pay, the merit rewards, and all sorts of other expenses will not be a joke." Yun Tianhe also said, "This kind of large-scale war will be a drag on Miracle Commerce's development. It's better to bide our time and wait for the kingdom to cooperate with the company. Our Miracle Commerce can't even afford this bit of money." Chu Tian had already made his decision. Central State City does not need to interfere. Miracle City's strength is enough. This war will end in less than half a month, and will unify the Warhound's plains in 2 months. The Southern Summer King knit his brows. It was true that Chu Tian liked to speak arrogantly, but looking at the historical records, his arrogance was well-founded. As for Meng Qingwu, she was a cautious person who would never let go of an arrow. If the two of them were this confident, it meant that they might be able to solve this problem. Good. Since the two of you have already decided to fight, how can this king hide behind the scenes? The current Southern Summer King was a wise and decisive person. The Southern Summer country cannot rely on strong reinforcements. Otherwise, it will cause the country's morale to decline. This king has decided to gather 150,000 soldiers and follow you to the north. There was no need for Central State City to gather 150,000 soldiers. After staying in the Forest of Chaos for a long time, the Southern Summer country's army was weak in his eyes. They were no different from chickens and dogs. Southern State City was Miracle Commerce's camp, and there were close to 30,000 barbarian berserkers stationed there. The strength of these berserkers surpassed the 100,000 Southern Summer soldiers. Unless it was a trump card army like the Griffin Knights or the Earth Dragon Knights, it was impossible to fight against these berserkers. How hard was it to raise a trump card army? If the Southern Summer country had 20 to 30,000 Griffin Knights or Earth Dragon Knights, history would have already been rewritten. Miracle City's most terrifying thing was not their special army, but rather the terrifying equipment these terrifying troops had. The source energy weapons were enough to raise the army's strength by several levels, so they were not inferior to the elites of a warring kingdom. Miracle Commerce's main commander was Dongfang Haoran. This former Southern Summer King's prince was now the calm martial ruler of the Southern Summer country. He had made large progress in this half a year, but he had never commanded a large-scale battle before, so he could use this chance to sharpen himself. After a few hours, the Central State Transport Tower continued to shine. The Minotaur Chief Arnold, the Shaman Priest Luz, the Ogre Chief Nathaniel, the Tiger Chief Andre. There were several dozen people in the Forest of Chaos. The most powerful local warriors all gathered here. Whether it was the Southern Summer King, the Divine Wind Marquis, or the Golden Arrow Marquis, their faces all twitched. They had never seen so many different races and different foreign races. What shocked the Southern Summer King and the Divine Wind Marquis the most was that these people were all experts in the peak 3rd True Spirit layer, with the strongest people almost reaching the 4th True Spirit layer. This was several dozen true spirit experts. This was a lineup the small southern summer country did not even dare think of. Any one of these people would be invincible in the South. The effect of these mere dozens of people on the battlefield was superior to that of an elite lion with more than 100,000 men. If these people caused trouble in Central State, the consequences would be unimaginable. There was no one in Central State City that could stop them. City Lord. Arnold's nostrils flared. How do we get sent here all of a sudden? Where is this? The others didn't react in shock. They were all looking around in shock. The huge ogre's gaze swept across the other humans. That ferocious glint in his eyes and his imposing aura made it hard for them to breathe. All of you listen well. Chu Tian walked in front of them with his hands behind his back. Although he was facing several dozen fierce forest locals, he was not intimidated by the other side's aura at all. Don't say that the city lord did not give you a chance. This is a country outside of the Forest of Chaos, and there's a very wide plain in the north that has large amounts of food and land to steal. I brought you here this time for no other reason than to steal territory and food. The eyes of these locals lit up. They actually came out of the Forest of Chaos to steal territory and food? This kind of thing was indeed very rare to them. The people there are pitifully weak. You have to properly grasp this chance. Yes, City Lord. Everyone rubbed their fists in excitement. Chu Tian waved his hand, indicating for everyone to be quiet. This is the Southern Summer King. The Southern Summer King slightly recovered and immediately had people prepare food. These brave warriors have come from afar, and the Southern Summer Country has hastily prepared food, so I'm afraid we did not take good care of them. Someone, come and receive the warriors. These country bumpkins had never left the forest in their lives. This group of country bumpkins, when had they ever enjoyed the luxurious life of humans? The Southern Summer King and the high-level members of the Southern Summer Country all attached great importance to this. They were lucky enough to visit the Southern Summer Country. This was something they never dared think about in their entire lives. In the next 2 days, whether it was eating, drinking, or living, they all had people serving them. This was simply an unprecedented experience. When these several dozen people walked through the city, they immediately caused a stir in Central State, causing people to flee in panic. However, when the radio stations and the media announced their identities, everyone's attitudes changed. These grotesquely shaped fellows actually found reinforcements from the endless forests in the south. These were warriors that had defeated the warhounds for the Southern Summer Country. Each one was a true expert. The Southern Summer citizens were no longer panicking and treated them like heroes. Arnold and the others had never received this kind of treatment before. These country bumpkins had lived here for a day or two and were praised to the heavens, greatly satisfying their vanity. At this time, a Heaven's Eye airship above the 4 states lake sent back a message and image. The enemy has been locked onto the northwest direction, mainly riding giant flying mounts. Although the image was not clear, it could be vaguely seen that the Eagle Burial Kingdom's ambush force was around 20,000 people. They had learned from their previous failure, and the warhounds would not fight with the Southern Summer Country on the water. Rather, they used giant rocks to transport their army. Each giant rocks could transport 600-700 soldiers, and other than several dozen giant rocks, the rest were air cavalry. This kind of formation allowed the army to move freely. Their target was clearly the Central State Port or important areas like the factories. After causing trouble and damage to the Southern Summer Country, they would immediately retreat, not wanting to fight. The giant transport beasts and air cavalry worked together. The Southern Summer Country's air force was very weak, so this arrangement was to attack their weakness. Miracle Commerce relied on Oldman Small Town to buy many flying demon beasts from the nearby tribes. Miracle City also trained and bought large amounts of flying demon beasts, but distant waters could not quench a nearby thirst. The transport tower's transport capacity was limited, so unless they created a space gate, it was impossible to transport the army. However, there was no need for that. The power they had now was more than enough. Chapter 9:07. The Southern Summer Central State Laboratory sent a piece of exciting and good news. The source energy computer had made a breakthrough. This was something Chu Tianwei was most excited about recently. Miracle Commerce had exploded several times in the past year, creating the source energy weapons, the space warehouse, and the spiritual world. Now, whether it was technology or production, they were all facing a bottleneck. With Chu Tianwei's knowledge in this era, he could only use the crudest method to realize a part of it before he fell into a stagnant state. Now that the source energy computer had been successfully developed, it would instantly break the current ceiling and increase Miracle Commerce's potential by a large amount. So it could be said that this was a very important matter. The source energy matrix is not stable, and we can't move it for now. What do you plan to do? Meng Qingwu had participated in the source energy computer research before. Although she didn't know what use the source energy computer had, the source energy computer could be said to be the project Miracle Commerce had spent the most time on, so it was one of the earliest projects Chu Tian had prepared. This complicated, troublesome, and strenuous project, if it wasn't worth it, Chu Tian would never do it. Young miss, go to the gnome's laboratory. I want to borrow their remaining spatial crystals. Chu Tian made his decision. Nangang will contact Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianxiu. I will send the blueprints and materials for the transport tower to the warehouse and have them prepare it in Central State City. Vivian will personally make a trip to Central State as soon as possible and build the transport tower for the Southern Summer Country, making it easier for me to go over. All right. The transport tower was very convenient. Once there was a transport tower, the two places would be very close and they could teleport at any time. But the transport tower not only needed the incomparably precious eyes of the star, it also needed large amounts of spatial materials. Miracle Commerce did not have many of these rare materials, and even the gnomes didn't have many in their several hundred years of storage. When Miracle City's transport tower was built, Chu Tian had already used most of the gnome's spatial attributed materials. Now that he was in a rush to build the second transport tower, Chu Tian had no choice but to borrow the rest of the gnome's spatial crystals. If these things were left in the gnome's hands, they would at most be used to make some storage equipment, so it was better to lend them all to Chu Tian. At worst, Chu Tian would just give them a space warehouse in the future. Everyone immediately began to follow his orders. This is bad. Meng Ying quickly ran in. The forest tribes are causing trouble in the city, and their leader is Arnold. We don't know how to deal with them. Quickly go and take a look. What were these fellows doing? Under Miracle City, several chiefs were leading a large group of people to protest. The newly recruited guards of the city lord's castle were in a dilemma. On one hand, many of these people were their tribe members, so it wasn't good to turn hostile like this. Arnold, you King dare to rebel? Arnold saw the angry Chu Tian and immediately shrank his neck. He never thought that he would draw Chu Tian out. After hesitating for a few seconds, he loudly said, "We are not rebelling. We are only fighting for our legal rights. We want to see Miracle Bank's chairman." When Miracle Bank was established, Meng Qingwu was the chairman and Dolores was the vice chairman. Arnold and the others did not want to see Meng Qingwu. Rather, they wanted to see Dolores for an explanation. Why do you want to see her? Because that vixen Dolores is being unfair. Arnold's large nostrils released steam, and he looked very angry. Recently, she has been giving large amounts of source stones to people on the outside, but she doesn't even lend us a single source stone. Why? It's just because of the grudges between the tribes. This is clearly using her position to take revenge. We don't accept this. That's right. Outsiders can borrow money from the bank, but we can't. Our tribe will send out 500 elites to become Miracle City's regular soldiers. The chiefs were all excited, as if they had suffered a great loss, giving Chu Tian a big headache. The so-called not worrying about scarcity, but worrying about inequality. Before miracle banking was established, everyone didn't think much of it. Now that miracle banking was established, several tens of thousands of source stones were used to lend money, but they were all sent to distant tribes and small towns. These locals tried to apply, but they were all rejected. The forest locals did not have good brains, so Dolores's attitude was immediately suspected of having ulterior motives. They thought about how the Fox clan often had conflicts with the nearby Minotaurs and Tiger people, so they naturally thought that Dolores was using her position to take revenge. They didn't know the troubles of the city lord. Actually, it wasn't just the locals that were complaining. Even the citizens were feeling dissatisfied. For example, Chu Tian recruited large amounts of elites from the forest to form an army, giving them special treatment and giving them stable jobs. Instead, the citizens didn't receive the same treatment as the conscription. So many gnomes were feeling dissatisfied with the city lord. Could this be blamed on Dolores and Chu Tian? The surrounding tribes were born around Miracle City, so they were all in the same sphere of influence. Dolores' large amounts of loans was not just for the development of the bank, but also to create a larger commercial area, allowing the Miracle Shopping Center to cover part of the area. Chu Tian's conscription was to stabilize the surrounding tribes and locals, letting everyone have a stable life. He also gave the locals large amounts of jobs to stabilize their lives, which was beneficial to the development of the area. But facing the dissatisfaction of the citizens, Chu Tian could only announce a large conscription. The citizens had to be a certain proportion of the conscription. Chu Tian asked, "Why are you taking loans? What else can we do?" Arnold confidently said, "The new area is about to open. We need to save money to fight the evil dragon. There have been more and more advertisements recently, and we've seen the evil dragon's abilities. It doesn't seem like a fellow that's easy to deal with. So, is it wrong for us to prepare a bit more source stones? Did the locals only care about this?" Chu Tian almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He thought they needed source stones for something. Chu Tian asked, "Don't you know that loans need to be mortgaged? Miracle Bank gives out source stones with interest, and if you can't pay it back, the mortgaged item will be confiscated." "Isn't it just mortgaged? We could take it out," several rich tribes said without any hesitation. "We're not afraid. We just want source stones." These locals really wanted loans. "Everyone, please listen to me." Chu Tian knit his brows and thought about it. Then he suddenly said, "Miracle Bank wasn't created to earn a lot of money, but rather to promote the development of the forest. The source stones we give out are not just to earn interest, but also to increase the value of the source stones in the forest, creating a win-win situation for the entire forest. Not only do we lend out source stones, we also need to make sure the lender gets more benefits. Otherwise, wouldn't this kind of loan be a blood-sucking action?" The locals were confused. "What do you mean?" "My meaning is that if you want to apply for a loan from Miracle Bank, then you have to take action. We only encourage business loans at this stage. We don't support personal loans or tribe loans for pleasure." Arnold had an unhappy expression. "The Minotaurs don't know how to do business." "Who says you need to do business to start a business?" Chu Tian clapped his hands. "Inging map." Meng Inging quickly opened a large map of the forest. Chu Tian stood in front of the large map and pointed at the Minotaur Valley as he said, "The Minotaur Valley is rich in ore deposits, and the Minotaurs have a body full of strength, so why don't they make a mine? Miracle City will welcome a period of rapid development. In the future, not only will the ore sell well, the price will also increase. Isn't this a business opportunity? The Minotaurs can use the ore as a reason to attract Miracle Commerce's investment. We can make a Minotaur mine together. Wouldn't the Minotaurs have an endless source of income?" Arnold felt this was reasonable. Borrowing money was not a long-term plan. The Minotaurs were already so poor that they only had their underwear left, so the more they borrowed, the poorer they would become. It was better to teach them to fish than to give them a fish. Miracle Commerce could work with the Minotaurs to make a mine. Miracle Commerce would provide transportation, mining tools, various technologies, sales channels, and etc. The Minotaurs would be responsible for mining and refining the ore. In the future, they would have a large income. Chu Tian pointed at another area and said, "There is a very rare wood near the ogre tribe. This wood itself is a level 3 material, and the entire forest is filled with it. You really don't know the treasure you're guarding. We can also work with the ogres to make a lumberyard. This place is suitable for growing. This place is suitable for growing. The center of the forest of chaos was rich in resources. Even if Chu Tian casually dug a hole, he could find a crystal mine that could be mined for 50 years. The rich natural resources were enough to make the entire forest rich. Look, this forest is rich in resources, and there are treasures everywhere. Why do you need to worry about a few source stones in the bank? Chu Tian circled a large area on the map. I plan to open a forest industrial park here. The various tribes can invest with miracle commerce. Those with money will contribute money. Those with power will contribute labor. Those with technology will contribute technology. Those with resources will contribute resources. And those with channels will contribute channels. We will split the profits together, and everyone will become rich together. So why do we need to hurt each other over a small matter? Right. The locals were filled with excitement. Miracle Commerce's space warehouse was no longer a secret. With the rich local resources and Miracle Commerce's channels, it was enough for everyone to become rich. They wouldn't need to worry about things like famine. Chu Tian spoke for a long time until his saliva was dry, and he finally convinced the locals to leave. He had only provided a preliminary idea. As for the specific plan, it was the young Miss business, so Chu Tian would not worry about it all. The forest was still very chaotic. The citizens, locals, and various powers were all mixed together. Only a patient and wise manager like the young Miss would be able to organize everything. Chu Tian was afraid anyway. Chu Tian, you're really amazing. You actually managed to trick these barbaric and unreasonable fellows. Tricking? This is called tricking. Chu Tian rolled his eyes. If we want the area to be stable, we can only make everyone rich. This is something we have to do sooner or later. It's not just talk. I really don't know what Miracle City will become in the future. Meng Yingying looked at the silent and empty area with an emotional sigh. Vivian will need a few days to build the transport tower in the southern summer country. Do you have any other plans? Chapter 908. The Oldman Small Town's oil mine had already been mined, and with the silver oil as the foundation, Miracle Commerce had already developed a new generation of energy. With this as the foundation, naturally, they could create a new generation of weapons. Miracle Commerce had established a large market in the Oldman Small Town, continuously sending materials to the southern summer country's secret weapon factory. Now, there was already a batch of weapons being made. Meng Qingwu contacted the factory, and a new batch of weapons was immediately sent over. It looked like a source energy cannon, but it wasn't the same. The source energy cannon fired a wave of energy at the target, creating a strong, killing effect. But the source energy cannon was very strong, but it had a very hard-to-ignore flaw. The energy wave it fired was condensed from energy, so it would constantly weaken and dissipate. The further it was fired, the weaker it would be. Once it passed a certain distance, it would completely dissipate, and its effective range and killing radius would be limited. The weapon sent over now was a weapon that could fire live ammunition, a large-scale rocket launcher. Miracle Commerce's employees brought out 3-meter-long rockets. The rocket launcher was incomparably large, with each one as thick as a person's thigh. It was covered in blue crystals and was reinforced with large amounts of runes, releasing waves of energy from the inside. The bottom of the rocket launcher and the rocket launcher have a compatible source energy array. Once the rocket launcher is fired, a large amount of energy will be sent out. It can reach a distance of 100 miles, and its average speed is 7 miles per second. If it encounters a large amount of resistance, it will explode. This is a pretty good long-range weapon. The rocket launcher's head is made of second-generation energy, and its destructive might is very strong. Even a mid or late true spirit realm expert would find it hard to take it head-on. Meng Qingwu continued to explain, this weapon was invented to attack fortifications and large targets that wouldn't move. Now with Smart Brain, perhaps we could try to directly attack the enemy's moving troops. Chu Tian said, instead of saying this much, it's better to give it a try. Zero, are you prepared? We're already prepared. Good, let's go. Several new models of battleships were docked in the central state port. These were the new generation of battleships jointly developed by the Southern Summer Royal Family and Miracle Commerce. Not only did they use high-level source energy, they were also equipped with the first-generation source energy cannons. Whether it was speed or battle strength, they were all impeccable. 5 rocket launchers were sent to the deck of a large battleship. This time the rocket launchers were not manually operated. Rather, Zero was placed here to form a temporary control panel. This control panel was not only connected to the rocket launchers, it was also connected to the information sent back by the Heaven's Eye airship. The enemy's position, speed, and direction were all quickly sent into the source energy matrix. With 10 energy columns working at the same time, the entire system quickly worked. The first-generation smart brain was large and cumbersome, but could calculate 500 million times per second. It was enough to process a large amount of data. The enemy's position, trajectory, and flying speed, as well as the weapon's data, could be calculated accurately. The Southern Summer Army had already gathered. 150,000 Central State City elites had boarded the battleships, and the 30,000 Southern State Berserkers were on the way. It could be said that the war hounds were under the Southern Summer Country surveillance, so it was impossible for them to sneak attack them. Only the two sides were so far away that they couldn't even see it with binoculars. Could the rocket hit the target in the air? This was not like bombing a city. The target was far away, small, and still active. This was definitely not an easy task. The Southern Summer Kings group, Arnold, Druz, and the others were all standing on the deck, waiting for this moment to happen. The target is in range and has been locked on. It can be fired with an estimated hit rate of 87%. Zero's emotionless mechanical voice came. Do you want to fire? Chu Tian looked at the empty sky and nodded. Fire. Zero coldly said, begin firing. The rocket launcher was slightly adjusted, and with a few continuous rumbles, 5-pointed and long spear-shaped rockets were launched into the sky. The tail flames were neither gorgeous nor long, and only a light blue and white energy flow was released. However, the speed was raised to the extreme in an extremely short period of time, as if it was going to pierce through space. When the air was violently rubbing against each other, it actually ignited into raging flames, immediately wrapping around the entire rocket. Too fast. The rocket instantly broke through the sound barrier and then wildly accelerated, reaching its fastest speed in just a few seconds. It was around 6-7 miles per second, which was around 10 times the speed of sound. How shocking was 10 times the speed of sound? Even a true spirit realm expert would find it hard to reach 10 times the speed of sound. The Warhound's army was around 1,000 meters in the air, not knowing that danger was quickly approaching. When they vaguely discovered that there were several streaks of light in the sky, it was already too late. The rocket was much faster than the speed of sound. Therefore, it was already too late when they discovered the sound of air braking. The 5 rockets burned from the friction of the air, turning into 5 meteors falling from the sky. They flew across tens of thousands of miles, breaking through everything as they flew forward. The Warhound's commander did not even have time to shout before the 5 missiles hit the giant rock. There was no explosion. It was a storm. Shockingly, it was an energy storm that was expanding. The giant rock was instantly swallowed by the energy storm, and its entire body was turned into minced meat. Several hundred Warhound's elites were instantly torn apart by the energy, not even leaving a corpse behind. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Everyone could see the energy storm in the sky from afar. Even if they weren't killed by the explosion, with such a terrifying energy storm, it would be hard for them to escape unscathed. It can't be. Nangong Yun's eyes popped out. How could this power be this strong? Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. This weapon isn't bad. We need to mass produce it in the future. This kind of missile weapon and pure energy weapon had their own style. The source energy cannon had a short range, but it was very strong in its effective killing radius, and it was almost impossible to intercept. After all, it was just a wave of energy, and its weakness was that it had a high requirement on the barrel. This kind of dense energy was condensed. How could normal materials withstand it? Therefore, strong materials were the prerequisites for high-level source energy cannons. The rockets and missiles had a long range. In the future, when miracle commerce entered the information age and automated smart brain era, it would have a terrifying killing range and deterrence. Because it was a real thing that was fired, the missiles would not be consumed before they exploded. Of course, the weakness was that it was easy to intercept, and its destructive power was weaker than the source energy cannons. Chu Tian said, "How many more of these rockets do we have?" Meng Qingwu shook her head and said, "This is the newest weapon, and this is the first time we're using it, so we don't have much in stock. This is just a test." "What? Truly disappointing," Chu Tian said with a sigh. "The company's production is too weak. We need to strengthen it and strengthen it." "All right, listen to my orders. We'll immediately move forward and take care of the fish that escaped the net." Although they didn't have any more rockets, their goal had been achieved. Several giant rocks were directly killed, and the Warhound soldiers suffered heavy casualties. They had suffered such a heavy defeat before even reaching Central State, it could be imagined how much of a blow this was to the Warhounds. Even if the remaining survivors still had battle strength, they would not have any fighting spirit left. The 150,000 Southern Summer soldiers started their warships, and several hundred warships moved across the lake, creating a spectacular scene. Everyone only had one goal, which was to head to the Tsang State port on the northern shore of the Four States Lake and directly attack the Warhounds' fortress. The defeated Warhounds did not need the Southern Summer Country to chase them at all. The giant shark gang intercepted them while they were retreating, catching all the survivors of the Warhounds' ambush in one fell swoop. After Chu Tian left, the giant shark gang underwent an earth-shattering change. Bossu had already become a true spirit cultivator, and the giant shark gang's members had doubled in half a year, becoming the #1 gang in the Southern Summer Country. This was a power that no one dared ignore, especially in the Four States Lake. At this time, a fleet filled with berserkers from Southern State arrived. After the Southern Summer Country's army gathered, they majestically headed to the northern shore's Tsang State port. The Southern Summer soldiers had been waiting for this counterattack for too long. The Southern Summer Country and the Warhounds had a deep grudge, especially after Imperial City had been taken and the northern states had fallen. Countless Southern Summer citizens had been slaughtered and plundered, causing the Southern citizens to be filled with rage. Only facing the Warhounds' aggressive stance, the Southern Summer Country had no way of turning the situation around. Chu Tian once again raised the morale of the Southern Summer soldiers. Miracle Commerce was participating in this battle, so they would definitely succeed. Everyone's aura was like a rainbow, swallowing 10,000 miles like tiger. They charged forward without stopping for a moment. The Warhounds never would have thought that the Southern Summer Country would suddenly have a decisive battle. The Southern Summer Country wanted to take advantage of the Warhounds' lack of reaction and destroy their foundation, taking back the Southern Summer Country's lost land. Chu Tian said, "This kind of direct attack will cause too many casualties, so we'll go ahead and do something behind them." "All right." Vivian immediately brought Chu Tian with her as they moved through space. Vivian's innate spatial energy was not bad, being able to travel several hundred kilometers with each teleportation. Although Chu Tian also had innate spatial energy, he could only teleport short distances. "We're here." The two of them arrived at Tsang State a day earlier than the fleet. This was the junction between Tsang State and the Imperial region. There were several ports in Tsang State that were located here, and it was a very prosperous place in the Southern Summer Country. Ever since it was occupied by the Warhound spirit beasts, this place had undergone a large change. Chu Tian used Vivian's ability to sneak into the Tsang State fortress. The two of them quickly placed time bombs in every corner of the fortress. These time bombs were made from the second-generation energy technology, so they were naturally very strong. When everything was prepared, Chu Tian left the fortress without anyone noticing and was now waiting for a good show to begin. Chapter 909. The basin where they fought the Lich Dragon had already been sealed by the gnomes. Although the earth-shattering battle had passed for a while, the entire area was still covered in a thick death aura. Several dozen miles of vegetation had withered, and there were still undead wandering around the area. Whether it was Miracle City or the locals of other places, they were not interested in this place at all. The gnome Great Elder Clark had led people in to dig, finally finding a space filled with powerful death energy under the basin. This should be an ancient death ruin. The Lich had built the altar and array on top of the ruins, absorbing the death energy that had been brewing for tens of thousands of years, finally condensing it into a terrifying power that could destroy the entire city. If Chu Tian hadn't stopped him in time, Miracle City would have already turned into a death zone. Chu Tian brought Ying, the little fox, the 18 divine servants, and the 10 Fox Clan priests into the ruins. Everyone be careful. Chu Tian turned around and made a gesture. He looked into the deep underground space and said, "This place is filled with all kinds of dangerous undead." The Fox Clan priests were all confused. Why did Chu Tian come here for no reason? Moreover, he didn't lack experts by his side, so why did he choose the demonic god religion's priests? The demonic god religion's priests were not strong in battle, so the Fox Clan's main value to Miracle City was beast taming and business. Oh my god, why does this place look so gloomy? Meng Ying followed Chu Tian into the underground world. She felt her body turn cold like there was ice water pouring into her pores. There are rotten bones all over the ground. It's just like a large tomb. What did you come here for? Is there a hidden treasure here? Chu Tian gave a laugh. Take a guess. Meng Ying gave a snort. Clark had already brought people to explore the death ruins. But because it was very dangerous and the negative energy was too strong, the exploration team had to retreat after entering a bit, so they didn't have much information to gather. Chu Tian was walking in front with his sword drawn. The little fox was lying on his shoulder, taking in large mouthfuls of energy. It sucked away the strong death energy around them, relieving the pressure on them. The entire underground world was like a huge ancient tomb. The skeletons of the ancient creatures, under some kind of powerful force, actually formed spiraling bone pillars. It was these pillars that firmly supported the space. Chu Tian could feel a strong energy fluctuation. The entire ruin was not simply supported by a physical structure. It had formed some kind of profound and powerful energy field that enveloped the entire tomb. That was why it had not been damaged, even after tens of millions of years. Even though the battle in the basin was extremely fierce, this place did not collapse in the slightest. Hey, tell me when the time comes, what is in this broken place? Meng Ying didn't even finish before her eyes suddenly popped out and her snow-white teeth chattered. Ghost, ghost. So many ghosts are coming out. The several dozen people had just arrived at a relatively open and flat area. There were spiraling bone pillars all around them, just like naturally formed stalactites rising from the ground. Only these bone pillars had large amounts of terrifying skulls embedded in them. At this moment, the skulls released a smoke-like energy. This energy quickly gathered in the air and quickly formed a fierce-looking ghost source spirit. There were many of them, and in the blink of an eye, there were several hundred of them. The dozen people were completely surrounded. The various ancient being skeletons piled up all around them began to tremble. Hua! A bone arm reached out. Meng Ying's slender leg was grabbed, and she was already frightened, so she quickly kicked out with a scream. Meng Ying's battle strength was not that high, but she was still a true spirit cultivator. True spirit cultivator spirit energy erupted, and the bones were instantly shattered. Meng Ying was still in shock, as she found that the place where the bones touched began to smoke. It was a good thing she had the starlight immortal body to protect her. Otherwise, with this kind of strong death energy entering her body, her leg would have been mostly crippled. Hualala! The entire world was filled with the sea of bones. Countless strange-looking skeletons slowly crawled out. There were so many of them that it was hard to imagine. There were quite a few complete ancient bee skeletons, and their bodies released an aura that was not inferior to a level 3 demon beast. Meng Ying was scared silly. Run your head. Chu Tian directly knocked her head. Truly useless. Don't tell others that you're with me in the future. Meng Ying was not convinced. There were over 2,000 undead monsters awakened this time. These undead monsters have been sleeping in this large tomb for who knows how long, and now they were all very strong. There were even some that were not inferior to true spirit experts. Meng Yingying had been raised by Chu Tian, and she had never participated in any battles before. Although her cultivation was high, she was actually very weak, so when had she ever seen this kind of scene? Chu Tian patted the little fox go. The little fox immediately made its move. Its figure flickered, and in an instant, it passed by the strongest undead monsters. Although the little fox's body looked like a small speck in their eyes, it was like a bullet hitting its prey. These powerful undead monsters collapsed upon contact. They were monsters without intelligence in the end. The little fox could easily swallow their soul flames. Chu Tian waved his hand, and the demonic god priest began to summon. Several dozen summoned beasts surrounded them, and the divine servants formed a barrier to block the attacks of these undead. A skeletal bird quickly charged over. The divine servants shattered it with a single punch. Meng Yingying was stunned. When did these things become this strong? Nonsense. How could the puppets I refined be mediocre? Chu Tiankai issued an order to the Yao god priests. Do you see these dead souls? I need large amounts of these spiritual bodies. If you help me collect more, this city lord will greatly reward you. The Fox Clan priests finally understood. It was no wonder Chu Tian would find the demonic god priests. Chu Tian's main goal in coming here was to collect undead with spiritual bodies. In the entire miracle city, only the demonic god religion was proficient in preserving souls. This was the foundation of their summoning techniques. The little fox completely suppressed the strongest undead. The summoned beasts, Chu Tian and Meng Yingying, blocked the other undead, and the demonic god priest took out bottles filled with strange runes. They used some unknown demonic technique to suck in the spiritual bodies of the undead souls one by one. Meng Yingying wasn't afraid after getting used to it. Although there were countless undead monsters, they couldn't do anything to them right now. Not to mention that they had city return scrolls, so they didn't need to worry about their safety at all. She asked in a strange voice, "Why are you collecting so many spirits? Don't ask so much, just do your work." The undead monsters in this place seemed like they could never be killed. After fighting for an entire half an hour, not only did the undead around them not decrease, there were even more of them. City Lord, the soul-sealing bottles are already full. We can't store any more. The bottles in the hands of the demonic god priests were filled with purple soul energy that kept hitting the walls of the bottles, as if they would shatter the bottles at any moment. Enough, we're leaving. Chu Tian led everyone and began to retreat. However, before they left this strange tomb, he cast a glance into the distance. His gaze revealed a look of contemplation. This place was clearly not formed naturally. It was probably a place set up by an ancient powerhouse. So, what exactly was sealed here? It wasn't time yet. Now wasn't the time. Since the ruins weren't far from Miracle City, it wouldn't be too late to explore it later. When Chu Tian returned to the city, it was already dark. This trip's harvest wasn't bad. There were over 100 spirits sealed in the soul-sealing bottles that weren't weak. He directly brought these things to the laboratory. The gnomes were very surprised by Chu Tian's sudden rebellion. Clark asked in a curious voice, "City Lord, is this appropriate?" Chu Tian directly threw a blueprint at him. "Don't ask so much. Go and prepare it." The gnomes didn't dare be careless and immediately went to work. Meng Yingying looked at Chu Tian. "What medicine are you selling? Ask less and look more. Why are you talking so much?" "I'm talking too much, annoying you to death. Take a hit." Meng Yingying's round but was slapped. Meng Yingying angrily chased after him, but she was taken down by the divine servants in just 2-3 moves. How could she fight Chu Tian? She could only angrily say something and call her good sisters Nangong Yun and Vivian over. The three of them would beat him together. He really was a fool. Nangong Yun and Vivian were good at fighting, but the two of them worshipped Chu Tian, treating him like a god. They didn't dare make a move against Chu Tian. While the two of them were bickering, the gnomes were already prepared. Clark stared at the source energy array on the ground. It was releasing a purple glow and was made up of several arrays. If his guess wasn't wrong, this was a soul-attributed array. Who had seen a soul-attributed array in this era before? The gnomes were all curious as they came over. A soul sealing bottle was placed in the center of the array. With a PU sound, the bottle cap flew up. A dozen or so evil spirits rushed out, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Chu Tian calmly said, "Activate the array." The gnome priest quickly activated the array, and the evil spirits were covered in light, immediately letting out sharp screams. These spirits were naturally formed vengeful spirits, so their resentment, hatred, and killing intent were too strong. Chu Tian's array could purify them one by one without killing them. Clark was very shocked. The source of the evil spirits' power was resentment and hatred, so they were good at spiritual attacks. If the negative energy was purified, in theory, it would be impossible for them to form a body. Chu Tian purified the evil spirits and kept them in their pure spiritual form. This was incredible. Of course, after being purified, they didn't have any energy left, leaving behind an empty spiritual body. These spirits are already in a stable state without any attacks, because these spirits are made up of soul energy and spiritual energy. These two things are the foundation of thinking. Chu Tian said this while making a few wrinkles. Then as long as the spirits are modified, they can obtain simple thinking abilities. This is the simplest form of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. Chapter 9-10. Vivian cut open space and pulled Chu Tian out. She was already so tired that she almost fell to the ground. Her beautiful little face was red as she gasped for breath. She was covered in crystal-clear sweat, and she couldn't even say a word. Chu Tian patted her back to calm her down. "What's wrong with you? It's only been a while, and you're already exhausted." "Big brother Chu Tian, it's easy for you to say. I almost died from exhaustion." Vivian had to teleport every 30 seconds, and she was carrying a person and a fox, so it could be imagined how much energy she consumed. "Big brother, don't you also have innate spatial energy? You can clearly do this kind of short distance yourself." This little girl was still complaining. "I have many abilities, but I'm not good at it. If it's just spatial manipulation, how could I compare to you?" Chu Tian was shameless. He first flattered the little elf, and then sincerely said, "We have to be very precise in the enemy's fortress. We can't teleport more than half a meter away. This is also a chance for you to train and increase your strength as soon as possible. I feel that with your innate talent, if your cultivation base increases a bit, you won't need to show yourself in the future. You just need to open up space and place a bomb through it. Is that so? I will work hard." Vivian's thoughts were simple, and she immediately believed him. "Then what do we do now?" The little fox's divine, I could see the situation of the entire fortress. Chu Tian had Vivian place a large amount of source energy bombs, and it had been very smooth from start to finish, not leaving a single trace. Now, they just had to wait for the fleet to arrive. Dawn was about to pass, and the sky was about to light up when the Southern Summer Fleet finally appeared. The fleet was very large this time, with several hundred warships. There were several warships in the lead that were equipped with source energy cannons. They were currently lined up on the lake, and their momentum was very large. The warhounds were not blind. How could they not notice them? Alert! There are large amounts of warships on the lake. Damn! It's the Southern Summer Monkeys. It's the Southern Summer Monkeys. Move out the fleet and the Air Force. Immediately sink these monkeys. When the Southern Summer Fleet was still a few hours away from the port, the entire fortress began to defend themselves. The warhounds had occupied the north for over half a year, so it was impossible for them to not do anything. In fact, there were over 100 warships docked at the Tsang State Port, all of them collected by the warhounds through various methods. When the fleet at the port received the fortress order, they were about to leave the port and enter a battle formation, but they immediately exploded. The giant shark gang had placed source energy bombs under the warships, and before the two sides even touched, most of the Warhound's warships had already been destroyed. The Warhounds were in chaos. The Air Force was sent out at this time. The Warhounds' air superiority was the only advantage they had over the Southern Summer Country. Although the Southern Summer Country had the airships, they were too big and lacked mobility. Other than the Heaven's Punishment airships that could launch high-altitude cannons, their air force was very weak. Chu Tian gave a cold laugh, truly seeking death. When the Warhound's air force was prepared to attack the warships in front suddenly released a storm of light bullets. Several tens of thousands of energy bullets filled the sky, and the Warhound's vulture riders were instantly torn to pieces. The broken pieces fell into the lake and dyed the lake red. Source Energy Spear. This was clearly a Source Energy Spear. The Warhound's spirit beasts knew that the Southern Summer Country had quite a few of these weapons and were prepared to be attacked by them, but they thought that as long as they charged forward, these weapons would be a joke. In the end, they never would have thought that the Southern Summer Country's attack would be 10 to 100 times stronger than they had imagined. Southern States' 30,000 reserve soldiers had arrived. This was an army Miracle Commerce had trained for themselves. Miracle Commerce did not hesitate to invest in this army. The 30,000 barbarian berserkers not only had shocking close combat strength, they were divided into teams of 10. Each team had at least one storm rifle and one source energy cannon, while the other members had submachine guns. 30,000 people meant 3,000 storm rifles. 3,000 storm rifles were enough to stir up a storm of death. Not to mention the fact that Miracle Commerce had developed a multi-barreled heavy firearm that had a total of 6 barrels and could fire 6,000 bullets per minute. This was a weapon that was even more violent than the Storm Assault Rifle, and Miracle Commerce's weapon designers called it the Heavy Destruction Rifle. Although it couldn't be moved, once it was fixed, it could create a strong suppressive fire in an area. Because the material and energy requirements were high, there was not enough production of these heavy machine guns. There were only 10 of them in the army, but it was enough to create a terrifying killing effect. With this kind of disparity in strength, was there even a need to fight? It wasn't that Chu Tian looked down on these fellows, but not to mention this amount. Even if the Warhound's aerial forces increased by 3-5 times, they still wouldn't be a threat to the Southern Summer Fleet. Miracle Commerce bought large amounts of materials and metals from all over the world, and most of them were used to create the source energy weapons. They never sold large amounts of weapons from start to finish and used all the best weapons on their own army, selling the rest to the Southern Summer Country. The destructive power of this army was not something any army could imagine. The Warhound's aerial forces were destroyed upon contact with the Southern Summer Fleet. Only a small portion of them escaped in a sorry state, not daring to approach the Southern Summer Army. Seal the fortress! Seal the fortress! Several wolf race commanders roared out in shock and anger. They never would have thought that the Southern Summer Country would become this strong. Their weapons progress was just too fast. It hadn't even been a year since the Imperial City battle, and their firepower had increased by more than 10 times. The Warhound's fortress soldiers were busy preparing for the defense of the fortress. Several dozen earth-shattering explosions came from the fortress. The source energy bombs that Chu Tian and Vivian had secretly placed had all exploded. Although it was just several dozen source energy bombs, even if it was a new type of bomb, it was not enough to destroy the several 100,000 soldiers. However, not killing them did not mean they had no effect. The source energy bombs were placed in important areas of the fortress. This series of explosions not only caused the fortress defenses to collapse, it also caused all kinds of fortifications to lose their effectiveness. The fortress soldiers were in chaos, already falling into chaos. The Southern Summer Army had enough time to reach the port. The source energy cannons on the ships began to wildly bombard, turning the Warhound ships and port into ruins. Fully armed barbarian berserkers began to disembark. The Warhound's port guards were powerless to stop them. Miracle Commerce's berserker heavy infantry disembarked without any obstruction. These barbarian soldiers that were armed to the teeth headed for the exploding and burning fortress several dozen miles away. All kinds of equipment were prepared. Almost at the same time, several airships appeared in the sky above the Warhound's fortress. One of the Heaven's Punishment airships had already opened its bomb bay. As long as Miracle Commerce gave the order, countless powerful bombs would rain down on the fortress. It's over. It was completely over. The Warhound's fortress was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Whether it was the Berserker army, the bombing airships, or the Southern Summer army of over 100,000, the fortress was in chaos and there was no way to stop them at all. Although the spirit beasts were fierce by nature, facing this absolute disadvantage, they were filled with despair. They couldn't even display the spirit of a trapped beast. Chu Tian saw that the situation was about right. He picked up a communication device and opened the public channel. Everyone pay attention, stop attacking. Everyone pay attention, stop attacking. All the attacking forces stopped attacking, but the air, land, and sea forces had already suppressed the fortress. Countless weapons were still aimed at the fortress, so the Warhounds did not have any leeway to fight back. Connect to the airship loudspeakers. Chu Tian's communication device connected to the loudspeakers on the airships. His voice could be transmitted to the entire fortress through these loudspeakers, allowing every soldier in the fortress to hear him clearly. Good friends, I'm called Chu Tian. I think you all know me, so I'm too lazy to introduce myself. With the current situation, you have no chance of winning, so I'll give you a chance to live. Kill the Eagle Burial Kingdom's commander, put down your weapons, and surrender. I swear on my honor that I will not kill or mistreat any captives. Don't believe them. The expressions of the two Eagle Burial Kingdom commanders fell. Humans are despicable and cunning. They can't be trusted. We have already displayed our strength. There is no chance in this battle. Even if the Eagle Burial Kingdom personally comes, Miracle Commerce and the Southern Summer Country do not fear them at all. Since there is no need to fight this battle, why do you need to make pointless sacrifices for the Eagle Burial Kingdom? I'll give you 5 minutes. If the reply I want doesn't appear, I can only turn this place into scorched earth and set the entire Warhound Plains on fire. I'll slaughter your entire tribe. This was a naked threat. Did the Warhounds people have a choice? The spirit beasts were fierce by nature, and they knew that with the current situation, it was impossible to take down the Southern Summer Country. Under the survival instincts of wild beasts, there was an uproar in the fortress. Not long passed. This uproar calmed down. The two Eagle Burial Kingdom commanders and several high-ranking Eagle Burial Kingdom generals were killed. The several 100,000 fortress soldiers threw down their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. The Southern Summer people were a bit confused. The Southern Summer Country clearly had the advantage. So why did they let go of these forces? If these several 100,000 people were killed, the Warhound's kingdom would be heavily injured and it would be hard for them to recover. Our true enemy is the Eagle Burial Kingdom, and the Warhound Plains is the buffer between the Eagle Burial Kingdom and the Southern Summer Country. As long as we force the Warhounds to betray the Eagle Burial Kingdom, the Warhound Plains will automatically become our buffer against the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Not only can we not kill these Warhounds Plains soldiers, we must release them when necessary and even provide them with some equipment and help. Chu Tian added a point after saying this. Other than that, with this example of not killing captives, it will be much easier for us to recover them later. It was like what Chu Tian said. Not only did the Southern Summer Country not kill these several 100,000 soldiers, they were even feeding them well. When the Southern Summer Country sent out 3 armies to recover the Imperial region, Furnace State, and Song State, they were unobstructed. The Warhounds already did not have any confidence, and their morale was low. Now that their main force of several 100,000 had been defeated, what reason did they have to put up a resistance? The Southern Summer Country army opened up 1,000 miles and finally took back all the land they lost half a year ago. Chapter 9:11. Artificial intelligence was a very advanced concept. It would be strange if primitive people like Clark and Meng Yingying could understand it. Artificial intelligence was artificial intelligence. This kind of thing could not be considered a life form, nor could it be considered an undead. It was just a tool that could think. Since it had intelligence, it could think. Since it could think, it could learn. Since it could learn, it could progress. This was the difference between artificial intelligence and normal puppets. Because the spiritual body's level isn't high enough, it can only form basic intelligence. Chu Tian said to the several artificial intelligence that had already been modified, "These spiritual bodies have formed intelligence, but they can't form their own consciousness. Therefore, they are an excellent intelligent tool. They will never be tired, annoyed, or afraid. In the future, they can be mass-produced and used in many different fields, greatly increasing our efficiency." The gnomes were deeply shocked. Artificial intelligence could control most knowledge through autonomous learning, so it was hard to imagine their future potential. Whether it was city management or laboratory research, artificial intelligence would occupy a very important position. This was because artificial intelligence was an existence that did not have emotions, but had intelligence. They knew how to think, but they did not have their own consciousness. They were absolutely fair, absolutely calm, and absolutely observable. They really never would have thought. Chu Tian had casually created such an amazing thing. Meng Yingying did not think too much, but she knew that with tens of thousands of artificial intelligence, it was the same as tens of thousands of scholars that would never get tired. The insect's research efficiency would be greatly increased. Clark quickly asked, "Sir City Lord, can you prepare a batch of these artificial intelligence for the research base?" This kind of low-level artificial intelligence is very easy to produce. With the millions of undead and resentful spirits in the death ruins, it is not a problem for us to produce as many as we want. Chu Tian shook his head when he said this. The biggest problem is how to train them. Although artificial intelligence will never get tired, this kind of low-level artificial intelligence has a limit to their intelligence, so their learning speed is very slow. If we want them to learn how to speak and learn various skills, it would take at least 5-8 years. If we want them to learn enough knowledge, it would take several decades or even 100 years. The gnomes disagreed. The gnomes had a lifespan of several hundred years, and the spiritual bodies had an unlimited lifespan. If they could train a group of spiritual bodies from scratch and pass it down from generation to generation, after several thousand years, these fellows would all become peak masters. Chu Tian, of course, knew what they were thinking. Although artificial intelligence can always exist, artificial intelligence has a limited memory space. This kind of low-level artificial intelligence can only learn how to speak and communicate. At most, they can learn some basic knowledge. Once their memory space is filled, they will not be able to progress any further. There's a limit to growth? Clark knit his brows. Then what should we do? If it was just normal daily communication and assistant work, it would release a lot of hard work and brainless work. Artificial intelligence could save people quite a bit of work, but it could not create more value. There are 2 ways to change this. The first is to create a higher-level artificial intelligence. Chu Tian threw something at Clark. "Come, first purify this thing." This is the Lich's soul flame. Clark recognized it with a single glance. This was the Lich's soul flame that Chu Tian found in the Lich Dragon's remains after his battle with the Lich Dragon. It contained all of the Lich's memories and wisdom. Clark was very curious as to why Chu Tian kept it, but now Clark finally understood. This soul flame could also be used to create an artificial intelligence. The soul flame needed a carrier. Chu Tian disassembled 10 souls and used an array to refine them into one. Then he purified the Lich's soul flame. Although this Lich had lived for over 2,000 years, it had already lost all of its emotions. However, its consciousness had not been completely eliminated. Chu Tian did not need an artificial intelligence that still had its own consciousness. Combined, the Lich's soul flame was poured into the new body. The spirit body's appearance instantly changed, turning into the Lich's appearance from before. A large robe covered its body, and a pair of red, glowing eyes were revealed from the hood. Only it was different from the previous Lich. This was a spirit body. The Lich's power had disappeared, but its memories and wisdom remained. From today onwards, your name will be Zero. Understood, Sir City Lord. There was a fluctuation around Zero, and the sound of the air vibrating was transmitted to everyone's ears. This voice was very mechanical, without any emotions or consciousness at all. This was completely different from the spirit body he had just created. This was a high-level intelligent artificial intelligence. Whether it was its current knowledge or its future learning potential, it was not something a low-level artificial intelligence could compare to. Chu Tian asked, "Clark, what do you think? This is truly a wonderful technology." Clark was not lying. He never would have dreamed that Chu Tian would turn the Lich into an intelligent puppet. From now on, the Lich's 2,000 years of accumulated wisdom and memories could all be used by Chu Tian, only Sir City Lord. This kind of artificial intelligence is very hard to make. What is the City Lord's second method? The second method, Chu Tian deliberately dragged out his voice. That is to use the artificial intelligence as the core of the computer and implant it into the super source energy computer. Even if it is a low-level artificial intelligence, as long as it is combined with the source energy computer's supercomputing, storage, and analysis abilities, it'll become an unimaginable existence. The gnomes were stunned. What was Sir City Lord saying? Why couldn't they understand at all? At this time, Vivian used the communication device to contact Chu Tian. She told Chu Tian that she had arrived in the southern summer country's central state and that the transport tower was currently being constructed. It would only take half a day before it could be used. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. "I'm too lazy to explain. It's better to see it with my own eyes. Clark, come with me to the southern summer country." "Sir City Lord, what did you say?" Clark has lived in the forest for 380 years and has never left the forest before. He never thought he would leave the forest one day because the forest of chaos is just too big. There are enough resources and space inside, enough for the gnomes to live and reproduce. Go to the southern summer country? A human country? That's right. Vice City Lord Vivian has already prepared the transport tower. It won't take long for the two sides to connect. Clark never dreamed that he would leave the forest of chaos one day and go to a human country. When Vivian finished building the transport tower in Central State City, Chu Tian brought a large group of people to Miracle City's transport tower. He first tested the other side's spatial coordinates and finally confirmed that they could be transported. Chu Tian didn't know. Gathering bones is easy to steal. Occupying space, magnesium, curling play. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Tian activated the transport array. The space began to slightly tremble as invisible energy quickly gathered, condensing into a hard-to-see spatial force field. When the spatial structure began to change, the elements in the air were pushed away, finally releasing a dazzling white light. He didn't know how long it had been since he experienced this feeling. When Chu Tian lived in the future 30,000 years in the future, there were transport towers and space gates all over the world. He even needed to use them to pee, so after transmigrating to this era, these things were very precious. The light disappeared. Chu Tian's surroundings completely changed. There were no green mountains, no waterfalls, no forests, and what replaced them was a large human-style palace. Yun, Tianhe, Gu Qinxiu, the countless Yun sect scholars, as well as the Southern Summer King, the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others. They were all gathered here, witnessing this miracle together. Success! Gu Qinxiu and Yun Tianhe roared out. Each scholar began to cheer. The Southern Summer King, the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others were all filled with excitement. Before Chu Tian was teleported over, they couldn't believe that this was real. How could there be such a magical technology in this world? Now they were told that there was nothing impossible in this world. At least it was like this for Chu Tian. Greetings to the country guarding ruler. Greetings to the country guarding ruler. Greetings to the Cloud Dream Marquis. There was a flash of white light beside Chu Tian. Meng Qing Wu, Meng Ying, Nangong Yun, these people that he had not seen for a long time had all returned to the southern summer country. These people were simply legends of the southern summer country. Especially Chu Tian, he was simply like a god. The entire southern summer country worshipped him, and his status was not inferior to the southern summer kings. Chu Tian laughed as he walked over. Everyone, long time no see. Greetings to the southern summer king. The southern summer king gave a bitter laugh, not knowing what to say. There was another flash of white light. Clark was transported over. When everyone saw him, they all revealed shocked expressions. The gnomes did not have much contact with humans, and this was a race that had only been seen in books. They never thought that they would see one in front of them. But compared to the human shock, Clark's brain had simply short-circuited. When he appeared in the royal palace of the southern summer country, when he saw the various humans around him, when he felt the different environment, he almost suspected that he had not woken up yet. This is the gnome Great Elder Clark. Although he does not have the title of a scholar, he is very knowledgeable. It is entirely possible for him to become a country scholar or even a country scholar. Chu Tian gave a simple introduction. Elder Clark, this is the southern summer country, a small human country to the north of the forest of chaos. Everyone was filled with deep respect. So, it's an expert from the forest of chaos. The southern summer king nodded. Since it is an honored guest, the southern summer country will not neglect you. We will immediately hold a banquet to entertain our honored guests, and also to welcome the country guarding ruler and the Cloud Dream Marquis. There's no need for a banquet. Chu Tian did not come back to eat. I want to see the source energy computer. Chapter 9:12. The Warhound's southern fortress was effortlessly captured by the southern summer country. The general situation was set in stone, and there was no other way to change it. So what if the Warhound's plains had tens of millions of spirit beasts as soldiers? In this world, numbers were never the deciding factor in a battle. Miracle Commerce's 30,000 berserkers could wipe out hundreds of thousands of enemies as easily as drinking water. The Warhound's elite forces have been severely consumed over a long period of time, and after several large battles. How could they have any excess left? Not to mention that war was not about military strength, but rather the country's strength. The Warhound's kingdom had already gone through many hardships, so how could they raise another large expeditionary army? The hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the southern fortress were only relying on the resources and food they had plundered from the southern summer country to survive. In the end, when the several 100,000 elite soldiers surrendered, the Warhound's plains did not have any soldiers or food. In contrast, Chu Tian's subordinates were like clouds, and the forest locals led by Arnold killed several of the prairie experts. Even if they were placed in the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom, they would be considered first or second-class experts. It was because of this that when Chu Tian attacked Imperial City, Arnold and several dozen people charged forward, but when they returned, they didn't know who the Fong King was. Everyone searched and found that the new Warhound's king had been killed by several dozen people. This pitiful Warhound's king had truly died a useless death. Arnold did not realize that he was a king at all and treated him like a lackey. The entire imperial region, Song State, and Furnace State had been captured. The Warhound's plains was like a dried-up oil lamp. How could they resist the powerful southern summer army? The Warhound's kingdom, this regime that had been established for less than half a year, had collapsed at this moment. The large tribes of the Warhound's plains had suffered heavy losses, and it could be said that they tried to steal a chicken, but ended up losing the rice used to lure it. They would most likely blame each other, and the entire plains would return to their scattered state, with no chance of a comeback, when they returned to the former imperial city of the southern summer country. This city did not have the prosperity of the past several hundred years. In that incomparably tragic imperial city battle, 2 of the southern summer 3 rulers had died, and over 100,000 soldiers had been bathed in blood. In the end, the city had formed a resistance army of several 100,000. Helplessly, resistance was futile. In the Imperial City battle, a third of the city was destroyed, and the population was reduced by a fifth. After the Warhounds took over Imperial City, they looted the entire city, taking all the treasures and resources turning the humans into spirit beast slaves. Anyone who resisted was killed without mercy, and the population was reduced by a fifth. The Warhounds' southern attack had failed, and the entire army had suffered heavy losses, but luckily, the previous Fawn King had foresight. He had left the elite demon wolf cavalry in the Imperial region. So although the entire army had been destroyed and the Fawn King had died, the Warhounds still had enough strength to defend their rear. The Eagle Burial Kingdom urgently sent a new king. Because the Warring Kingdom was in a tight situation on all four sides, the Eagle Burial Kingdom was fighting at least 8 other countries at the same time, so they did not have any extra strength to attack the small southern summer country. This Warhound's king could not wait for reinforcements, so he could only learn from his predecessor's failure. He decided to prepare for a long battle. The Warhound's king enslaved several million people, opening up fields in the wilderness to provide supplies for the Warhounds. He enslaved several million people to build the southern fortress and repair the destroyed docks to prepare for a long battle. He enslaved several million people to build ships and forge equipment to prepare for the battle in the future. In order to not give the southern summer country a chance to rest, he sent out teams to disturb them. During this process, at least 10 million people were enslaved. They were beaten to death, worked to death, starved to death, ran away, and resisted. In short, the population was reduced to less than half. The war, enslavement, and fleeing made almost all the adult males die. As for the females, this was relatively lucky because the spirit beasts had no interest in human women, but their lack of interest did not mean other people had no interest. The Warhound's king prepared more resources and funds, so he ordered his army to capture large amounts of young and beautiful human women and sell them to the northern countries. However, because it was troublesome and took a long time, there weren't many sold, but it still caused quite a bit of population loss. In short, after half a year of war, the people had no way to live. The northern population was less than a fourth of what it used to be. When the old imperial city's scorched black gates were opened, the once bustling streets were filled with collapsed walls. The stench filled the air, and it was a complete mess. There were no adult males to be seen, and the ones that came out were all women, children, and old people. They were all wearing ragged clothes and hugging themselves. How could there be any of the imperial city's noble and proud citizens? They were simply a group of beggars. Our king has finally returned. We knew that the southern summer country would not abandon us. Long live the southern summer country. Long live the southern summer country. Long live the southern summer country. Countless beggars cried out as they gathered on the streets. This scene was very touching. They were once proud citizens of the imperial city, living rich and happy lives, but now they were separated from their families. The southern summer king revealed a look of shame. All of this was because the northern defense was not good, and they finally gave up on the imperial city and the 2 northern states. The southern summer king was the calm martial ruler, the commander of the country's army, and the highest commander on the front lines. Everything becoming like this was a major dereliction of duty on his part. The Warhound's kingdom is destined to be destroyed. The Warhound's plains will no longer be able to cause trouble. The southern summer country will work with miracle commerce to conquer them. Everyone needs to quickly rebuild their homes. The southern summer people quickly comforted the refugees. The Meng sisters, Nangong Yin, Vivian, and the others all revealed pained expressions, especially the emotional Meng Yingying. She did not dare believe that in just half a year, Imperial City had turned into a ghost city. The citizens were all skin and bones from starvation, living like lonely ghosts in the ruins. Was this the cruelty of war? Meng Yingying felt a strong sense of guilt. The northern part of the southern summer country had fallen, and the tens of millions of people were suffering, but she still lived a rich life, almost forgetting about this place. Thinking about it, if this world did not have Chu Tian, perhaps the entire southern summer country would not have been able to escape. How much better would she be compared to these people? Although it was not her responsibility, she still felt a strong sense of guilt. Meng Yingying pulled on Chu Tian's clothes. Let's help them rebuild the city. Chu Tian gave a slight nod. Rebuilding the homeland is easy, but protecting it is hard. We have to take care of the northern side. Only then can we prevent this matter from happening again. Meng Qingwu ordered Vivian to use the space warehouse to bring large amounts of medicine and supplies to the refugees, which could temporarily alleviate the urgent situation. The southern reinforcements would arrive in a few days, so there was no need to worry about this matter. They sat together for a meeting. The contents of this meeting were how to repair the southern summer country, how to deal with the prisoners, and how to clean up the northern prairies. The Warhound's King's strategy was very conservative, but strictly speaking, it was correct. The Warhounds madly enslaved humans to open up land, build forts, ships, and equipment. First, they could accumulate strength, and second, they could wait for the best time. The only thing they didn't expect was that the southern summer country was changing too quickly. Now the Warhound's kingdom was finished. The southern summer country had captured at least 800,000 spirit beasts in the Imperial region, Song State, and Furnace State, including the 100,000 demon wolf cavalry from the Eagle Burial Kingdom. How to deal with these troops was a headache. According to reason, these were all evil invaders. They should have burned them one by one in the old imperial city to vent the anger of the people and raise their morale. But reason told everyone that this was wrong. 60 to 70% of these captives were elites of the Warhound's Plains, and the rest were sent by the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Now that they had betrayed the Eagle Burial Kingdom, if they could use them, this strength could become a barrier for the southern summer country to defend against the Eagle Burial Kingdom's invasion in the north. Chu Tian once again expressed his opinion. I think that when we return the Warhound's Plains, we can create a puppet regime in the Warhound's Plains, creating a northern militant country. This prairie will be in our hands, and we could be assured forever. Create a puppet regime? The Southern Summer King agreed in his heart, but the possibility of this being carried out was not high. The Warhounds and the Southern Summer Country are old enemies. Is it easy for us to create a puppet regime? Actually, it's not hard. Just leave this matter to Miracle Commerce. Meng Qingwu began to plan. We have many experts in the forest, whether it is spirit beasts or other races. There are quite a few of them. We can send a few strong spirit beasts to create a colony in the Warhound's Plains. Other than that, the shaman priest Luz, I think he should be very interested in developing his shaman religion on the prairies. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. The Warhound's Plains is simply a natural, fertile land for the shaman religion, and we have seen the shaman sorcerer's methods. With Luz's strength and our Miracle Commerce's strength, it won't take long for those thorns to be controlled. Whether it is satisfying their hearts or being controlled by goo insects, there are ways to make them kneel at our feet. That's right, we can copy the Eagle Burial Kingdom's method and use their colonial power to rule the Warhound's Plains, using their faith to consolidate their rule. When we completely control the prairies, whether it is the prairies or Miracle Commerce, we have a way to create a win-win situation. I think that as long as the tribes of the prairies aren't stupid, they will give up on the Eagle Burial Kingdom and join us. The Southern Summer King saw the confidence of the two of them, so he asked in a probing voice, "Are you confident?" Letting several 100,000 elites return to the prairies, the Southern Summer Country would have to bear a large risk. Southern Summer King doesn't need to worry. We just need to choose a suitable Northern Militant King, and the Northern Militant Country will be established in a few months. Chu Tian swept his eyes over the vast prairies. Now that our momentum is at its peak, how about we take back the ancestral land of the Southern Summer Country? We'll change the country's name to Great Summer from now on. With these words, even the calm Southern Summer King revealed a look of excitement. Gu Qinxiu and Yun Tianhe were filled with joy. The Southern Summer Country had always wanted to take back their ancestral land and rebuild the Great Summer Country. This goal was already within reach. Although the kingdom's current national strength and population did not live up to its name, with the kingdom's current potential and speed of development, the Great Summer Country's name was well-deserved. Chapter 9:13. There was a large change in the Southern Summer Country. Central State City's population had increased by a third compared to when Chu Tian left, and it was twice as prosperous as before. This was not only because Central State City had become the Southern Summer Imperial City, but also because it was the birthplace of miracle commerce. Miracle Commerce had a large laboratory in Central State City and a large industrial park, which directly increased the growth of Central State City. Especially after Miracle Commerce's space warehouse was opened, Miracle Commerce often sold resources from the Forest of Chaos to the Southern Summer Country, which greatly increased the Southern Summer Country's strength. At this moment, people like the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others had all broken through their bottlenecks. The two of them were now experts in the first true spirit layer. The barbarian berserkers trained in the Southern State Berserker Training Camp were also hired by the Southern Summer Country. They also bought large amounts of source energy weapons from Miracle Commerce's arsenal and used the Four States Lake as a natural barrier. So it was hard for the Warhound's kingdom to take any advantage. Now that the Southern Summer Country had recovered its strength, it was not weaker than before. The Southern Summer Country quickly became famous in a short period of time. Now, there were caravans coming to the Southern Summer Country from the surrounding countries to buy Miracle Commerce's products. Therefore, although the Southern Summer citizens still used Southern Summer gold coins in large transactions, they began to use source stones. This was a sign of connecting with the international market. The Southern Summer Country, becoming the Great Summer Country, was just around the corner. Clark walked on the streets of Central State City and felt like he was in another world. There were several dozen airships flying in the sky and tall buildings. There were all kinds of large screens, showing all kinds of eye-catching advertisements and the sound of horns coming from the streets. There were fewer beast carriages on the streets. Most likely due to Miracle Commerce's influence, Central State was a very innovative place. The Source Energy battery-powered Source Energy hovercars had already appeared, and there were quite a few people using this new convenient transportation tool. They were like beetles moving through the streets of the city. This was truly too shocking. How could a small country like the Southern Summer Country develop to this degree? The prosperity and wealth of the human cities far surpassed Clark's imagination. He did not dare believe that this was the capital of a small country. The rise of the humans in the last few hundred years was not without reason. Perhaps in another few thousand years, the elves and spirit beast limelight would be suppressed by the humans. The Central State Laboratory had already undergone a large change. After Chu Tian left Central State, he took a part of the business with him and placed it in the Southern State Laboratory. The Central State Laboratory focused on the source energy computer and expanded it several times, reaching twice its original size. There were over 2,000 people working on the source energy computer, with Chu Tian providing the core technology and ideas. The research team of over 2,000 people went through over 135,000 adjustments and experiments before finally completing something that surpassed this era. The Central State Laboratory members knew that Chu Tian was coming, so they all ran out to welcome him. Chu Tian saw several familiar figures among them, like the Lin siblings, the two founders of the Heavens Alliance. Now that the citizens had joined Miracle Commerce and had become official researchers of the Yun sect, they were young and promising, making people envious. They were walking on the path of realizing their dreams. Greetings to the chairman and vice chairman. Everyone excitedly bowed down, almost kneeling down to Chu Tian and Lin Sun. These were all scholars from all over the country. A portion of them had never seen Chu Tian before and could only understand him through Chu Tian's image and deeds. Now that Chu Tian had become a god worshipped by the entire Southern Summer Country, with this legendary person appearing in front of them, how could these people not be excited? Chu Tian was very surprised. There are so many people. Of course, Gu Chinchio had already broken through to the true spirit realm, and he looked much younger than before. Perhaps it was because his life was more fulfilling and filled with energy. Not only are there Southern Summer scholars here, there are also many people who didn't hesitate to travel thousands of miles from other countries to study in the Southern Summer Country. They have all become Yun sect scholars, and there are even 4 with the title of Great Scholar. Chu Tian nodded. Not bad, not bad. The Yun sect can be considered strong. With the Yun sect becoming stronger, the happiest person was of course old man Yun Tianhe. The Yun sect originated from the central state Yun family. The Yun family was a small country's family, but now they were able to use this method to become famous, and they could participate in the Yun sect's research. This was truly a breakthrough. The Yun sect did not seem very strong right now. Among the gnomes that Chu Tian had allied with, in terms of academic level, there were at least several hundred great scholars. However, the geographical isolation would cause academic isolation. The human scholars and gnome scholars did not have the same research methods, so they needed to communicate with each other in order to integrate. Not to mention that the Yun sect was created by Chu Tian. Gu Qinxiu, Yun Tianhe, and the other Yun sect scholars had been studying with Chu Tian for an entire year, so they had grasped large amounts of miracle commerce's core technology. This was a gap that no scholar in the world could catch up to, so they couldn't be judged by their knowledge. Chu Tian's group began to tour the Central State Laboratory. Although the Central State Yun sect's research facility had been moved to Southern State, this was Miracle Commerce's earliest research facility, so it was still the place where Miracle Commerce's technology was most concentrated. Miracle Commerce's products and technology were all stored here. I suggest that Great Elder Clark form a group of scholars when he returns and have the gnome scholars come to Central State for a period of time. What do you think? That's exactly what I wish for. That's exactly what I wish for. Clark was already deeply shocked by Miracle Commerce. Clark finally understood Chu Tian's background, but he also felt a large opportunity and future. Most of the gnomes were scholars. Miracle City's resources were much stronger than Central State's, and Miracle City's research facility was much larger than Central State's. Moreover, Chu Tian had already made Miracle Commerce their headquarters, so the Yun sect future headquarters would be in Miracle City. The gnomes would have a large opportunity. If they could join the Yun sect, the gnomes would have a decisive position in the Yun sect. This was enough for the gnomes to go down in history, becoming the representative of the continent's scholars, pioneers of invention and innovation, becoming a large, influential clan in another way. Yun Tianhe opened the door to a laboratory. Rows of drawer-like black boxes appear in front of them. When one of the black boxes was pulled out, each box was filled with source energy array slabs. There were 6 of these black boxes, forming a hexagon. They were all connected together, forming a large, complex source energy matrix. This source energy matrix was made of over 10 arrays, with each array containing over 100 source energy arrays. There were over 300,000 runes in total, requiring around 10 energy columns to operate at the same time. These are the main computers. They are the first-generation source energy matrix. Yun Tianhe said in a very proud voice, "This source energy matrix contains over 300 source energy array processing centers and 8 information storage arrays. Its calculation speed can reach 500 million times per second, which is enough to handle a large amount of information." 500 million calculations per second? Clark revealed a stunned expression. With this kind of powerful calculation ability, if it was used in source energy array deductions or experiments, how much of a help would it be? 500 million. Chu Tian shook his head. Too slow. This was still slow? No one knew what to say. Not to mention the size is too big. Chu Tian looked at the 6 large black boxes and shook his head. We need to increase the strength of the source energy matrix and also decrease the size of the source energy matrix. Otherwise, a single source energy matrix would take up the entire room. It would be too cumbersome, and it would be hard to popularize. Yun Tianhe and Gu Qinxiu wiped their sweat. The chairman's request could scare people to death. This source energy matrix calculation system took over a year to make. Could it be that he wanted to promote this to the entire world? That was simply a joke. Chu Tian said, "We're prepared to make an automatic array engraving device. With an intelligent computer, array masters won't need to personally engrave an array 1 rune at a time. All the runes and alchemy will be automated, so the production efficiency will increase. The automatic array engraving device needed source stones to power it. Because the source energy contained in source stones was the closest to the human body, it could be used to create source energy arrays. Source energy batteries were an industrial energy source that could maintain source energy arrays, but they couldn't be used to create source energy arrays. So, the array engraving device would cost a lot, but it would free up large amounts of labor, allowing them to increase their technology. Gu Qinxiu said, "This array is still missing a core. There's no need for you to say it, I've brought it." Chu Tian gently waved his hand, and the artificial intelligence Zero was released. Zero, begin the fusion. Zero's incorporeal body floated to the center of the giant array. There was a crystal there, and Zero's body melted into it. Almost in an instant, an invisible energy spread out, and the entire array was activated. Chu Tian directly asked, "Zero, how do you feel?" Zero's voice came from the array. "The entire array has been connected to me. Is Zero really that strong?" Meng Yingying was a bit in disbelief. "You wouldn't be bragging, right?" Chu Tian snappily said, "If you don't believe me, you can test him." "I'll test him." Meng Yingying loudly asked a series of questions. "Zero, let me ask you, 252, 541, 3 multiplied by 434, 2342 divided by 21,343 multiplied by 43,543 added by 654,245 multiplied by 143,432. What is the final result?" Zero answered without any hesitation. Meng Yingying spent more than 10 minutes to calculate it once. Finally, she discovered that there was not even the slightest error. The hundreds of digits after the decimal point were calculated clearly. She immediately revealed an expression of admiration. Chu Tian was amused by Meng Yingying. "You want to ask Zero this kind of child's play question?" Meng Qingwu never thought that the combination of the artificial intelligence and the source energy matrix calculation system would have such a shocking effect. If we bring this source energy computer to Miracle City, we can use it to manage Miracle City's accounts, bank data, citizens' information, and even city planning. I think it would be very convenient. How could it be just like that? Chu Tian said with a faint smile. The source energy matrix calculation system's calculation speed cannot be compared to the human brain. Using it to create a spiritual space will be more stable. Using it to invent new source energy arrays will be more outstanding. Using it to control source energy weapons will be more terrifying. Using it to control production will be more precise. And in the future, when the calculation power increases by several hundred or thousand times, we can even use it to calculate all kinds of changes. In short, its functions are not something you can imagine. That's right. Zero was the continent's first super source energy computer. Although it couldn't compare to humans in terms of invention and creation, it could not be compared to normal people in terms of logic and calculation. It had already reached the realm of spiritual gods. Chu Tian ordered, "Young miss, send Zero to Miracle City. You will be the only person with the highest authority over Zero other than me. From now on, Zero will be Miracle City's management system. I believe that with this thing, Miracle City's development will increase by a large amount." Meng Qingwu asked, "When will the second one be made?" Gu Qinxiu and Yun Tianhe looked at each other. "I'm afraid it will take at least a month." "That long?" "No." Chu Tian shook his head and said, "Recruit more people. I'll have the gnomes help you. First create the array machine. We don't have that much time to make them one by one. This thing needs to be mass-produced. It needs to be smaller and smaller, and its calculation speed needs to be faster. Yes, the birth of an intelligent computer." Chapter 9:14. Establishing a northern militant country puppet regime on the Warhound's plains was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a strategic decision made by Miracle City. Whether it was Chu Tian or Meng Qingwu, they both recognized a problem. Miracle Commerce was an external power, so it was not an easy matter for them to expand in the Forest of Chaos. The Forest of Chaos seemed like an endless civilized wilderness on the surface, but it was actually very complicated underneath the seemingly barren wasteland. The entire forest of chaos was filled with large powers. Miracle City was a subsidiary power of the Eternal Forest in name, but they didn't have enough support from the Eternal Forest. Perhaps they couldn't feel it at the start, but before long, all the powers would come from all directions. It wasn't hard to foresee that Miracle City would be hindered in the future, not to mention expanding their territory to attack cities. Even if they built factories, large barracks, or large amounts of mining, it would attract the jealousy and fear of others. Now, they could use this chance to release a portion of their strength and resources, sending them to the outside world to establish a colonial power. Using miracle commerce's superiority in transportation, they wouldn't be restricted by space even if they were thousands of miles away, allowing them to invest and expand. The Northern Militant Country puppet regime had a large significance. This would be an independent kingdom under miracle commerce's control. Meng Qingwu had studied the northern plains of the southern summer country. This plains was very large, including the Imperial Region Plains, Song State Plains, and the Warhounds Plains. Moreover, it extended in all directions, covering an area of several tens of millions of square kilometers. It was like the borders of 4 or 5 kingdoms, so the natural foundation was not bad. It was just that the native spirit beasts were too stupid. The Warhounds Plains occupied 60% of the plains. It was tens of thousands of miles long, with smooth terrain and no natural barriers. In the future, it could become the center of a region. The Warhounds Plains was not a barren land. There were tens of millions of spirit beasts and tens of thousands of miles of fertile land. Whether it was the population, soil, or resources, they all had a large value to develop. It was just that the stupid spirit beasts didn't know how to develop it. Once the puppet regime of the Warhounds Plains was established, the southern summer country would also give them a large amount of support because the north was stable and prosperous. The resources could be mined and shared, which was in line with the great summer country's core interests. If the north and south were connected like this, they would not lose to the warring kingdoms in the future. This matter was happily decided like this. Chu Tian made the decision on the spot. Dongfang Howren, you will be stationed in the Warhounds Plains front lines and stabilize the Warhounds Plains. Luz will bring the shaman priests to the Warhounds Plains to spread the shaman religion. Arnold, you can think of a way to win over the Warhounds Plains. This land is large and fertile, so how much territory and population you can steal will all depend on your own skills. Everyone was very excited, especially the orc Luz. Luz was the chief priest of Miracle City's shaman religion, so he knew that the Warhounds Plains was suitable for establishing the shaman religion. The large Warhounds tribes were poor, and now they were facing a bitter defeat, so it was the best time for a religion to invade. As long as miracle commerce provided material support, the orthodox shaman religion would definitely spread in this land. Only Luz was a bit worried. He hesitantly said, "Sir City Lord, although the plains are good, it is too far from the forest. Although the transport tower can take us to Central State, it will take several days to go from Central State to the Warhounds Plains. I'm afraid we won't have enough manpower. How could this city lord not think of this problem? You can be assured I won't be idle. From Central State to the Warhounds Plains, the distance is a bit big. For efficiency, I will build a transport tower in the Northern Militant Country as soon as possible. In the future, when the Northern Militant Country's transport tower and Miracle City's transport tower are connected, you can go back and forth at any time." The tribe chiefs were all overjoyed. This was truly a large piece of good news. If the plains had a transport tower, what difference was there from Miracle City's back garden? Miracle City's people could come and go as they pleased. There was no need to worry about managing them like this. These tribal chiefs could freely recruit soldiers and buy horses in this region to establish their power. Everyone excitedly left after receiving their orders. The Warhounds Plains already has a transport tower, so it will naturally be more convenient. Meng Qingwu asked with knit brows, "But we really can't take out the materials to build a transport tower." This was also the problem that gave Chu Tian a headache. They had the core material for the transport tower, the Eye of the Star, but they didn't have enough spatial crystals to use at all. The gnome's materials had already been used up by Chu Tian, How could this kind of rare material be easily obtained? There was no other choice. They could only search and do their best to search. Chu Tian said, "We'll split up and search. The young miss will be in charge of purchasing materials in the forest, and I'll go to the north and other regions, going to the markets of the surrounding large countries. I think there will be some harvests. I'll also use this chance to open up several markets for miracle commerce and inquire about the situation of the nearby kingdoms. The northern militant country's regime could not be established overnight. Miracle commerce did not lack money and resources. It was only a matter of time. Meng Qingwu brought people back to Miracle City. There were still many things to do in Miracle City, and they couldn't be without a leader for a long time. She was in a rush to deploy Smart Brain and establish the city's intelligent management center and system. Chu Tian was very bored staying in the forest for several months. Using the excuse of purchasing materials and establishing the northern militant country's government, he planned to take a look around the nearby countries, so he was not in a rush to return. Nangong, Vivian, and the others all had missions, so although they wanted to follow Chu Tian, they couldn't leave right now. They could only obediently follow the young miss back to the city. After a week, the southern summer king, Dongfang Gan, announced in the old imperial city that the country would be called Great Summer. The north had been heavily damaged, and for the development of the kingdom, the Great Summer country made Central State City the new imperial capital. Furnace State and Tsang State remained the same, but the imperial region and the ancestral lands in the north were divided into 7 new states. The Great Xia Kingdom didn't have the intention to continue expanding to the north. They expanded to the south, west, and east, occupying more barren lands and establishing 3 more prefectures. The Great Xia Kingdom had a total of 16 prefectures and counties, which was more than double of its original size. In terms of land area, the Great Xia Kingdom was already a large kingdom in name and in reality. The Great Summer King once again created marquises. The 3 southern and 3 northern states were all controlled by people who held important positions in miracle commerce and did not have a low position in the Great Summer Country. For example, Dongfang Haoran, Gu Qinxiu, Yin Tianhe, as well as the Nangong and Shangwan families. These 6 areas were designated as special administrative areas by the Great Summer Country. They were developed and managed by Miracle Commerce in the Great Summer Country, supporting Miracle Commerce's factories, cities, and army training camps. They did not collect any taxes at all. Other than that, the country guarding ruler Chu Tian was given the title of Great Summer Country Scholar, and the Cloud Dream ruler Meng Qingwu was given the position of Great Summer Foreign Minister. Dongfang Gan was very clear in his heart that the Great Summer Country's prosperity could not be separated from Miracle Commerce, and Miracle Commerce needed the Great Summer Country. The 2 of them were mutually beneficial to achieve a win-win situation. What was there to care about with a few more empty titles? Chu Tian had already said that even if the Southern Summer King's throne was given to him, he would not have much interest, not to mention this kind of empty title. When the Great Summer Country held the title ceremony and the National Day ceremony, he did not even attend. At this time, Chu Tian brought the 2 young and big beauties, galloping into the depths of the prairies. This was a business trip, so Chu Tian was not in a rush to finish his mission. He immediately brought Meng Yingying to have fun on the prairies. Meng Yingying was very happy playing. The scenery of the prairies was completely different. In this week, she had visited various ancient ruins and mixed into the nomadic tribes. She had seen a magnificent scene of 10,000 horses galloping. There were no external enemies or internal threats. With Chu Tian by her side, camping together and playing together, this was simply one of the happiest moments of her life. On this day, the sun was setting in the west. Chu Tian and Meng Yingying were tired from playing, so the 2 of them sat on a ball of grass to watch the sunset. The fiery red sunset dyed the entire sky red, and the prairie was also illuminated in a beautiful golden red color. This boundless and boundless grassland was truly enchanting and pleasing to the eye. Meng Yingying hugged her knees with both hands. The sunset dyed her snow-white, jade-like face red. she said in a casual tone. Hey, Chu Tian, we've known each other for more than a year. Haven't you always forgotten to say something to me? Say what? You know in your heart. Meng Yingying fiercely glared at him. Humph, I'm telling you, you can't just leave this matter hanging. I'm almost an adult. If you don't make a move, I won't wait for you. Chu Tian pretended to be stupid. Yingying, what do you want to say? Why can't I understand a single thing? The happiness that Meng Yingying had accumulated over the past few days was suddenly destroyed by this hateful guy. She had already said it so clearly, yet this guy still pretended to be stupid. She angrily snorted and stood up to leave. Just you wait to regret it. I'm ignoring you. Chu Tian laughed out loud. As soon as she turned around, he immediately reached out and hugged her slender waist. You pervert. Meng Yingying's face suddenly turned as red as an apple. She symbolically struggled a few times, and then half pushed and half leaned into his embrace. You bullied me. I'll go back and tell elder sister. Yingying, you're right. Some things can't be dilly-dallied. Chu Tian completely ignored Meng Yingying's threat. He closed his eyes and carefully sniffed the fragrance coming from the girl's hair. Let's get married. Meng Yingying felt her mind go blank with a bang. What is this bastard thinking in his head? The two of them haven't even officially started dating yet he directly skipped this step. This guy's way of thinking is really hard to accept. Meng Yingying found that she could never keep up with this bastard's thinking. You don't want to? Chu Tian let go of her, shrugged, and said, Then forget it. No, I didn't say I don't want to. Don't misunderstand. Meng Yingying hurriedly shouted, but then felt that it was a bit inappropriate. It's just a bit too rushed. Also, what about elder sister and the others? It was a bit inappropriate to mention this at this time. Chu Tian's brows immediately knit together. Although there were many beauties by his side, and they were all very outstanding, in comparison, Yingying was the one he met the earliest, so their feelings were the purest. The young miss was a great beauty with peerless style. It was impossible for any normal man not to be moved. Chu Tian's time with the young miss, communication, and feelings were not less than Yingying's, but it was more of a cooperative relationship between colleagues and friends, so it was not as natural and sincere as when he was with Yingying. Chu Tian couldn't say who was better, but he felt the most comfortable with Yingying. Humph, I'm not blind. This problem can't be avoided. Elder sister will definitely like you. Meng Yingying indignantly said. There's also Nangong, Vivian, and the others. Even if they don't have that kind of feeling for you, they still worship you, so most of them don't have the ability to resist you. I really don't know what's so good about you. You have so many problems, but you can still seduce so many women. He really couldn't see it. This little lass was quite perceptive. Chu Tian helplessly said, It's my fault that my charm is too high. I'm actually very low-key. I swear to the heavens, I've never taken the initiative to seduce anyone. Meng Yingying gave an unhappy snort. The continent did not have a rigid monogamy system. No matter if it was a man or woman, as long as they were outstanding enough, it wasn't strange for them to have multiple partners. It was even a common matter. Yingying admitted that she was a bit narrow-minded, but she was not a stingy person. What made her confused and annoyed was her inferiority complex. That's right, it was inferiority complex. This inferiority complex did not only come from Chu Tian's excellence. It made her feel that her birth was ordinary and her talent was mediocre. It also came from a series of strong competitors. Elder sister, Nangong, Vivian, each one of them was outstanding. They had strong abilities, good talent, and high birth. These people had a good relationship with her. She did not reject them, but there was a sense of crisis in the depths of her heart. She felt that she was inferior to any one of them. It was because of this that the lazy and playful Yingying had changed over the past year. She did her best to stay up late to study, working hard, inventing the canned food, helping with the space warehouse, creating the spiritual illusion, and etc. Yingying was different from her elder sister, Meng Qinwu. She did not have any ambitions or ambitions. She just wanted to chase after others. Silly girl, there really is something wrong with your brain. Why are you thinking about all these random things? Chu Tian could feel the girl's complex and contradictory feelings. He revealed a faint smile and used his hand to support her beautiful face. The Ying I like will always be unique. No one can compare to you. After saying this, he slightly lowered his head and kissed the girl's tender lips. Under the beautiful setting sun, the two of them tightly hugged each other. Chapter 9:15. The Supersource Energy Matrix and the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body. The two were completely different things. According to normal history, the two would appear around 400–500 years apart. First, there was the Source Energy Matrix, and then the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body. Therefore, the Source Energy Matrix in the history books was originally controlled by humans and could only be used for normal calculations and statistics. After all, a living person could not merge with the Matrix, and the Matrix itself did not have any intelligence. When the Artificial Intelligent Spirit Body appeared, the situation was different. Gu Qinxiu said with a sigh, "This thing will be recorded in history. Chairman should give it a new name." Chu Tian also felt that computer didn't sound good, so he said to the people beside him, "I'm not good at naming things. You guys should do it." "I have one." Meng Yingying scratched her head and blurted out, "How smart is its brain?" "We'll just call it Smart Brain. What do you guys think?" Meng Qingwu nodded in satisfaction. "I think it's very good." Chu Tian didn't think too much before deciding. "All right, then we'll call it Smart Brain." Smart Brain. This was a super intelligent computer with strong learning and calculation abilities. It could be used in all aspects of life in the future. This was another milestone in the continent's development and a leap in miracle commerce's development. Meng Qingwu was already a bit impatient. "Immediately send this Smart Brain to Miracle City to use first. I want to figure out how many functions Smart Brains have." Chu Tian waved his hand at her. "What is the young miss in a rush for? Smart Brain won't fly away if we leave it here. Now that Miracle City and Central State have a transport network, we can teleport between the two places at any time. It's already very convenient to go back and forth, so there's no need to be in a rush." This was also true. Having a transport tower was truly convenient. Speaking of the Miracle Transport Tower, we consume quite a bit of energy each time we use it, so there should be a limit to the number of people we can teleport each day. Moreover, while the transport tower brings convenience, it also brings danger and instability. For example, people with bad intentions from the outside world can use the transport tower to come to Miracle City. Meng Qingwu asked, "Is there a way to prevent this from happening?" The Miracle Transport Towers were built all over the world. It was impossible for Miracle Commerce to protect every transport tower, so there was always the possibility of an accident occurring. This would undoubtedly bring danger. When the Miracle Transport Tower is connected to Smart Brain in the future, we will be able to control everything, so we don't need to worry about this. Chu Tian said this before pausing. As for now, we can only raise the threshold to prevent the transport tower from being abused. Meng Qingwu nodded. The two of them drafted a Miracle Commerce's transport tower usage regulations and guidelines. This set of guidelines clearly stated, before using the Miracle Transport Tower, one had to first apply for a transport tower use permit from Miracle Commerce and also a transport pass permit to the destination. The former was the right to use the local transport tower, and the latter was the right to reach the destination. Unless it was a high-level member of Miracle Commerce with special permission, they had to apply to the relevant Miracle Commerce department a day in advance. They had to report the time and destination of the transport and pay 20 source stones to complete the transport service. After going around and around, in the end, they still had to spend 20 low-grade source stones. 20 low-grade source stones were converted to Southern Summer Gold coins. That was 20 million gold coins. This kind of cost was hard for normal people to imagine. But with this kind of restriction, the transport tower would not be overloaded, and it would be able to prevent any danger from occurring. Meng Qingwu nodded in satisfaction. This was much safer. Not only was the transport tower safer, it was also a foundation for commercialization. That night, the high-level members of Miracle Commerce gathered in the Southern Summer Royal Palace. The Southern Summer King held a large banquet, not only to celebrate Miracle Commerce's glory, but also to thank Miracle Commerce for their support and care for the Southern Summer Country. Actually, Miracle Commerce's early development was inseparable from the care of the divine wind marquis, Yun Tianhe, and the Southern Summer King Dongfang Gan. The reason the Southern Summer Country was able to smoothly pass through several crises was also because of Chu Tian and Miracle Commerce's help. Especially after the Southern Summer Country's imperial region was destroyed, the Southern Summer Country had to move their capital to Central State. Chu Tian brought his team to leave Central State, but he kept sending back all kinds of resources, as well as selling weapons and troops to the Southern Summer Country. This allowed the half-dead Southern Summer Country to quickly recover. The entire Southern Summer Country was filled with gratitude towards Chu Tian. Although Miracle Commerce would slowly move out of the kingdom, Miracle Commerce's traces would never disappear. Miracle Commerce would still leave behind large amounts of factories and laboratories in the Southern Summer Country, which would continue to operate. Not only would it provide large amounts of jobs for the Southern Summer Country, it would also make the kingdom more prosperous. Meng Yingying, Nan Gongyun, and Vivian were very happy. The three girls clinked their cups together until their faces turned red. Let's drink another cup. Let's go to the theater after we finish eating. All right, I heard that he has a new work coming out recently. Nan Gongyun and Yingying were very attached to Central State. After all, they had grown up here and had over 10 years of memories. Meng Yingying's face turned red. It wasn't easy to come back, and we thought we wouldn't have another chance in this lifetime. Who would have thought that the transport towers would be built and we could come back to play at any time? This is truly great. That's right. Nan Gongyun began to laugh. Our boss really is skilled. Vivian also chattered on. In the future, distance will not be a problem. When we're in a mood, we can come back to eat or go to the theater. This kind of life is very beautiful just thinking about it. Big Brother Chu Tian is too great. Dolores had just been called back from Miracle City, and it was her first time coming to a human place. At this moment, everything was filled with novelty. This is where the Vice City Lord lived? It seems like the Vice City Lord's status in this country wasn't low. Meng Qingwu nodded with a faint smile. She didn't like to drink and would only take a sip every time. In order to keep a clear head, she bitterly smiled and shook her head. What status? If it was a year and a half ago, I would just be a small merchant in a small city a few hundred miles away from here. Every day, I would be careful as if I was walking on thin ice, living a life of constant fear. How is this possible? Dolores cried out in shock. Your company is so big and you're a marquis. Moreover, you're so smart and capable. How could you be a small merchant? I don't believe it. Human society is more complicated than the forest. At that time, there was no strength, no background, and no technology. How could you have any achievements? When Meng Qingwu said this, her eyes became a bit hazy. In this 1 year, everything has changed. Miracle Commerce has gone from nothing to something, from small to big. It really is shocking. 1 year? Miracle Commerce only used 1 year? Dolores couldn't even close her mouth. This was clearly not the work of Meng Qingwu. It was all the work of the mysterious Miracle City Lord. He really was a miraculous person. This king will take this chance to announce a few things. The Southern Summer King gently raised his hand, and several royal proclamations were presented. Miracle Commerce has given the Southern Summer Country a new lease of life. The Cloud Dream Marquis is now titled the Cloud Dream Ruler. Nan Gongyun is titled the Phoenix Marquis, and Meng Yingying is titled the Marquis Ying. The Southern Summer Country is small and has no land to grant. Although it is an empty title, it represents the Southern Summer Country's friendship. Whether it was Nan Gongyun or Yingying, they did not care about the Marquis title. They had the resources in their hands. How could a title compare to them? Not to mention an empty title. But to be granted a marquis title in their country, this was a matter worth celebrating. While everyone was celebrating, suddenly, one of the Southern Summer King's communication devices rang. Portable communication devices were very common in Central State, and most people with a bit of status had one. How could the Southern Summer King not have one as the king? The Southern Summer King did not say much before his brows knit together. There is a situation in the northern defense line. This king cannot accompany everyone. I've been rude. What did you say? Could it be that the northern spirit beasts are attacking again? Nangonyan almost flipped the table. How preposterous. Are you done? It's not an all-out attack. The Southern Summer King shook his head and said, it's just harassment. Everyone doesn't know. Yun Tian has said from his side, when you left the Southern Summer Country, the Warhound's kingdom had already harassed the Southern Summer Country 5-6 times. Although they returned without any success, they still brought quite a bit of trouble. Although the Southern Summer Country can block the Warhound's kingdom's attacks, they do not have enough military strength to launch a counterattack, so the North and South have been divided. Chu Tian knit his brows. What is the Warhound's battle strength like? After the Battle of the Four States Lake, the Fong King and his army were completely annihilated. The Warhounds have gathered another 300,000 elites on the Warhounds Plains, and the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom has added another 300,000, with around 600,000 troops stationed in the fortress. Although there are more and more troops stationed here, they have only been harassing us, which means they are still accumulating strength. As long as their army reaches a certain level, they will launch another war against the Southern Summer Country. It's too troublesome to have a ticking time bomb by our side. Chu Tian looked at the young miss beside him. How about we take advantage of this time to get rid of them in one go? Get rid of them in one go. The Southern Summer King and the others all opened their eyes wide. Chu Tian's tone was incomparably relaxed. How was it like he was destroying a large kingdom? It was as simple as drinking a cup of water in front of him. Chapter 9:16. Meng Yingying was slightly dazed for a few seconds. Her blurred vision became hazy, but she did not resist. She slowly closed her eyes. Tears of joy flowed out from the corner of her eyes. It was strange. Before Meng Yingying met Chu Tian, she could not understand the concept of love. Ever since Chu Tian appeared in her life, her heart was almost immediately occupied by him. This was the first time she had fallen in love with someone. Could this be the so-called love at first sight? This guy was obviously bad, and often deliberately made her angry. She did not know why, but her life could not escape from his shadow. No matter the time or situation, as long as she was with Chu Tian, she felt very happy and satisfied. Whether it was eating, sleeping, or even breathing, she would think of him. She felt as if there was an invisible string connected to him. No matter where she went, she would not be able to get rid of her longing. If she did not see him for a day, she would feel very empty. Meng Yingying knew in her heart that Chu Tian had a good impression of her, but she did not have much confidence in herself. Now that this moment had come too suddenly, Meng Yingying was at a loss of what to do. She did not know how to react at this time. Forget it, I'll just smash the can. Could. A light cough. Chun Bingyu appeared on the small hill like a ghost. Although her face was covered so that her expression could not be seen, her eyes were still staring at the two people. Her eyes were filled with a complex and strange color. She immediately said in her usual indifferent tone, I'm really sorry to bother you. Meng Yingying jumped up like a frightened rabbit. Sister Bingyu, it's not like this, it's all his fault. Fuck. This woman who appears and disappears like a ghost actually ruined my good deed. Can you not be so exaggerated? We are in a proper relationship. It's not like we are cheating. Chu Tian casually pulled her over. Sister Bing, you came the right time. I have already decided on a date to marry Yingying. Shouldn't you celebrate? Chun Bingyu's expression did not change at all. I really have to congratulate you. Meng, Yingying did not take it anymore. She put her hands on her hips and shouted, Hey, you rogue, did I agree? You're just talking nonsense. What? After all this time you don't agree? I didn't say I didn't agree. And I just think, we're not that old. There's no rush. No, it's not that there's no rush. It's just that Meng Yingying's speech was somewhat incoherent. The more she spoke, the redder her face became. Finally, she lowered her head and muttered, We have to pick a suitable time and opportunity. This kind of abrupt behavior is not good. Who would say they want to get married as soon as they arrive? You're really annoying. Chu Tian laughed and wanted to tease her a bit more. I think this kind of thing should be discussed in private. Chun Bingyu seemed like she did not want to watch anymore. Luz has made some progress. He needs to take some time out of his busy schedule to solve it. Meng Ying seemed to have finally found an opportunity to escape. She quickly seized this opportunity to ask, "What happened? Isn't Luz preparing to establish the shaman religion in the grasslands? How did he encounter trouble?" Chun Bingyu replied, "There are several large nomadic tribes in the western part of the grasslands that have collapsed, most likely because of the war with the southern summer country. Adding in the beast plague that has caused a large number of domesticated beasts to die, the entire tribe has collapsed, forming a large number of refugees. Luz hopes to absorb them and establish his influence." Understood. The Warhound's plains were already empty due to internal strife, and they had been fighting with the southern summer country for over half a year. The large tribes were already suffering, and there were many people who didn't have food to eat. It was because the Warhound tribe was in a difficult situation that Chu Tian had the chance to occupy this area. The collapse of several tribes had formed a large number of refugees. Wasn't this a good time for the church to spread their teachings? Luz hoped that Chu Tian could use Miracle Commerce's space warehouse to transport enough food to help these refugees. Let's dress up before we go. Chu Tian's name was not famous in a barbaric place like the Warhounds, but Chu Tian and Meng Ying were humans in the end. The Warhounds and humans had been mortal enemies for thousands of years, so if they interfered as humans, it would not be good for them. After half a day, the three of them found Luz. The disguise of the three of them was not complicated. They just put on a large and bulky robe and wore masks and gloves, not revealing a single part of their body. Finally, they used some kind of medicine to change their human scent. Luz respectfully cupped his hands to Chu Tian. "Sir City Lord." Chu Tian sized up the surrounding situation. Other than Luz leading the shaman priests, there were several forest chiefs maintaining order. There were around 40,000-50,000 refugees gathered here. This scale was enough to form a medium to large tribe on the Warhound's plains. From the current situation, this number could still increase. All of these people were sick, starving, and emaciated to the point of being skin and bones. They didn't seem like vicious plunderers at all. They were simply a group of homeless stray dogs. The shaman god will guide any beast spirit that has lost its way. Now, let me see the pain you will all suffer. Chu Tian's voice was low and hoarse, like he had used a voice-changing technique. He first imitated the shaman and faced the tens of thousands of Warhounds refugees filled with longing. He spoke a lot of comforting words in the spirit beast language and then began to examine their bodies. In addition to starvation, these people were also suffering from serious diseases. This was a very malignant parasitic disease. Once it entered the host's body, it would wildly multiply. It would first build a nest in the stomach, then it would invade the organs, and finally, it would enter the bloodstream. It would wildly absorb spirit energy and energy, finally torturing the host to death. Moreover, contact was very contagious. One person would fall sick, and the people they came into contact with would not be able to escape. There was no cure for it in the Warhound's plains. Defeat, famine, and an infectious disease. These grandsons were truly unlucky. Chu Tian pretended to be mysterious and said a few prayers to the shaman god before leaving this place to make his preparations. "What do we do? I think their illnesses aren't light." Meng Ying lifted her hood and immediately asked, "We have several large warehouses in Central State with canned food. I'll contact someone to send it over." "No, we won't use canned food this time." Chu Tian wrote down several recipes and a list. "Send these to the Central State Laboratory and have them refine the medicine according to the recipe above." Meng Ying did not understand alchemy, but Ying had made quite a bit of progress in the past year. She found that these were all very cheap herbs, but since Chu Tian did not say anything, this matter should be easily taken care of. She immediately took out the communication device to contact Central State and had them quickly take care of it. 3 days later, the number of starving people had doubled, and they couldn't hold on much longer. Chu Tian pulled 10 large beast carriages over, and each beast carriage was filled with large boxes. The shaman priests let out a sigh of relief when they saw this. They quickly shouted out, "Long live the shaman god," causing the starving warhound's people to loudly cheer. Luz revealed a confused expression. Why were there 10 carriages? There were already over 100,000 starving people here. Now that the news of the shaman sect's redemption of the refugees had quickly spread, it was likely that more refugees would come one after another. How many people could eat with just a dozen beast carriages? It wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of these people. Open it. What appeared in these boxes was not food as he had imagined. Instead, it was potions that had been stored in small jars. This is the divine water bestowed by the shaman god. Chu Tian began to boast again. This divine water can alleviate your illnesses and create large amounts of food for you to pass through your difficulties. It wasn't just Luz. Everyone's face was filled with shock. It was fine if the medicine could cure illnesses, but could it be used to fill one's stomach? Chu Tian took out a large bronze cauldron engraved with runes from the gourd. This bronze cauldron was a sacrificial tool used by the church, so it added a mysterious color to it. The shaman god said that everything in this world can be used to redeem one's life. Chu Tian said to everyone, "I ask everyone to send the grass into the cauldron. The shaman god's divine power will turn the fresh grass into food." Everyone was stunned hearing this. How was this possible? Luz was filled with doubts, but he was afraid of being seen through, so he couldn't directly ask. He could only help by shouting, "Everyone follow the envoy's words. The shaman god will not lie to his believers." There wasn't much grass. There was as much grass as he wanted. The large bronze cauldron was filled with bright green grass in less than 10 minutes. Chu Tian activated the source energy array on the large cauldron, and a surge of energy came from the cauldron. It was like all the grass had been thrown into a grass grinder and was immediately compressed into a large paste. Chu Tian acted as if he was a ghost and poured a bottle of medicine inside. In the end, an incredible thing happened. The paste quickly changed and finally turned into a kind of dry food. It was like it was made from baked grain, and it released an alluring fragrance. Pum! Chu Tian sent a palm of the cauldron. The dry rations were all ejected out, scattering among the refugees like a fairy scattering flowers. These refugees had long been starving, and when they smelled the alluring fragrance, they all rushed forward in a frenzy to snatch it. They were extremely hungry, and even if it was shit, as long as they could survive, they would eat it. But what was hard to believe was that not only could the dry food made from grass fill their stomachs, it also tasted pretty good. The most important thing was that when this dry food entered their stomachs, they could clearly feel their bodies getting better. A miracle. This really is a miracle. The warhound spirit beasts all knelt down in worship. Wasn't this a miracle? Why did the warhounds invade southern summer again and again? Wasn't it to survive? If even the cheapest grass could be turned into dry food, then the life of the warhound's spirit beasts and the warhound's prairie would undergo a giant change. You've all seen it. Chu Tian loudly shouted. The shaman god has turned grass into food. Now the entire warhounds and the prairie is filled with food. Not only can this food solve your hunger, it can also cure your illnesses. This is a gift from the great shaman god. You won't have to suffer from famine anymore. Luz was filled with admiration towards Chu Tian. If a few hundred tons of canned food were transported here, although the problem could be solved, the cost would be relatively high and the effect would not be as good. However, he came up with such an unprecedented method, turning grass into food. Just this cauldron alone in this period of time, how many followers could the shaman religion attract? This move was just too beautiful. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.